Idek what to call this, just need to tell other people. About a year ago I had a supernatural experience where I had possessed, some could say, or I was not under control of my own body, but it quit after 2 minutes or so. From my friends, I don't remember anything from the 2 minutes, and I was starting to basically hurt myself for the 2 minutes, not severely, but to the point where it caused harm to myself. Anyway, since then I would get these, what to call them, like visions, where I would see and feel shit. For example, during school I would be walking down the hall and I would see just hell, and I would literally turn hot, like not just feel hot, but yay, that's a summary. Stuff like that happens to me daily, like him almost teleported to hell physically somehow. I've gone to the doctor and an exorcist and some neurologist, and I signs of schizophrenia in the brain, and exorcist doesn't believe I have been possessed or I am currently under control by some demon. Not really confession, just kinda want other opinions, and Jay wanted to tell some other people and get off my chest. Stories number 2. Did losing weight help you get a partner? I am 25, currently about 260 pounds at 5 feet 9 inches. I carry my weight really poorly, which in my eyes makes me very unattractive. I imagine women feel the same way, as I have had no luck dating on the apps or in person. I've been overweight since high school, so it's affected my entire dating life. I've never been in a relationship, and I think a big reason is my weight. Both my physical unattractiveness and my mental issues with confidence and self-esteem surrounding it. I've been desperately wanting to lose weight for years. The last few weeks, however, it's kind of all starting to click, and I'm not half a sign it like I was before. I just want to know how successful people were on finding partners after weight loss, because honestly, that's my primary goal. Sure, I'd like to be healthy and all that stuff, but getting a girlfriend is priority 1. I know how lame that sounds, but that's just the way I feel. I've never had that person in my life and I want them desperately. So did losing weight increase your opportunities and potentially help you find a partner? Stories number 3. Aita for offering to pay for my girlfriend's college tuition. I am 21 and I've been dating my AF20 girlfriend for about 6 years now. She's amazing, hardworking, and incredibly smart. She's currently attending a community college and plans to transfer to a 4-year university next year. However, she struggles financially as her family isn't well off. I come from a more affluent background, and my parents have always been generous with me. I've got a great job and a good savings. Seeing her work so hard and stress about her finances, I wanted to help, so a few weeks ago I offered to pay for her tuition when she transfers to the university. I thought it was a good idea. I love her and I want to support her dreams. When I made the offer, she got really upset. She accused me of thinking she was some sort of charity case and said that my offer made her feel inadequate and embarrassed about her financial situation. She told me that she didn't want to feel indebted to anyone and that she wanted to achieve her goals on her own. I tried to explain that I was just trying to help and that I didn't see her as a charity case at all. I just wanted to ease her burden and support her in any way I could. A few days ago, we got into a big fight. She was venting about her college dues and I snapped and told her that if she wouldn't let me help by paying for it, then she shouldn't keep bringing it up around me. She got really mad and accused me of not being supportive. Since then, she hasn't been talking to me at all. She's been distant. So Aita for offering to pay for my girlfriend's college tuition. Stories number 4. I'm learning through meditation that one of the main reasons I always feel miserable is loneliness, and there's nothing I can do about it. Anecdote. Human connection is a basic need. People in total isolation can literally become insane. Fortunately, I can at least interact with the cashier in the grocery store or with strangers on Reddit, but it's still extremely hard and I feel completely unable to enjoy life because of it. I can't learn to be alone, same as I can't learn to live without food. I used to cope pretty well, but I can't cope anymore after so many years. It's great that I'm getting insight, but not too great since I can't do anything to change. Yes, you go outside. Yes, you have hobbies. Yes, I do try to meet new people. Yes, I try to keep my friends. I try my best to be a good friend for them. It doesn't matter. People say I'm funny and kind and whatnot, but I guess they look for something else I can't offer because they don't really want to spend time with me. I managed to build friendships that lasted for years that I thought were great. They all left except for one guy and we're not close. There are no local Shangays here, and at this point, I'm so done with this. Oh no, if I'll ever manage to make the suffering go away. Stories number 5. Aita for breaking up with my girlfriend because she literally told me she would chest on me if I took a new job. I know this is going to come across as first world problems. I am currently at a job where I earn about $250,000 a year. I have an opportunity for a job where I will get $640,000 a year. The caveat being that the new job is overseas. I will be gone for months at a time instead of for weeks at a time. My girlfriend is unhappy. She says that she doesn't want me gone for that long, that she will get lonely. I tried to explain that I will only be doing this job for 1 or 2 years and that the money I make sets us up for a bright future. We can pay off all our debts, we can buy a house, we can travel on my off time. She then said that she doesn't care about any of that and that if I'm gone for that long she might need company. I didn't understand at first, and I said that we could get the dog she has been wanting to get. She said she meant human company. I said that she had lots of company, work and at school, and she was welcome to use our place to socialize all she wanted. She then spelled it out because I was stupid to think she was a decent human. She said that she wasn't going to go for months without intercourse. I said I completely understood and broke up with her. She is going crazy right now. She is at her sister's house and calling me and text constantly. She says that I misunderstood and that she would never cheat on me. Like I said, I'm gone for a month at a time now, so I'm pretty sure she's been lonely before. I can't trust her and I'm not going to try and build a future with someone who can't think about plans. Stories number 6. I will never learn that nothing is so permanent. It has a temporary solution, but my boss has. Lawn. About 15 years ago I got a stack of green bar paper delivered to my desk every morning. It typically ranged from about 60 pages to 600. I have to review each page and look for certain information which may or may not have been present and then add it to a list. Then I bucket the list by client, type it all up nice and neat, and then send the results over to each client. It took anywhere from an hour to half the day. I finally managed to convince our management to send me an electronic copy securely via email that I could parse and almost complete format via Excel. The result I could typically bang out in about 30 minutes at most. The method was relatively crude, but it got the job done and it was easy for me to modify if the format of the underlying data changes. I expected someone to come up with something more robust and official sometime in the next 18 months or so. But that little sheet was what we used for years, even some years after I left the team and had forgotten all about it. Someone on the team found my name in the sheet and called me asking for help. About 5 years ago I got asked to make a report that would identify gaps in our on-call schedule. Same as before, I'd built a quick and dirty mechanism using some reports and Excel that would pick out the gaps. And same as before, it was crude but easy to understand and easy to modify as needed. And again, I figured someone would come along after the fact and build something more robust and official, but that didn't happen. I used that process for years right up until I left. In fact, I just chatted via LinkedIn with the person who took over part of my duties. They are still using that thing. 3. I moved to a new company, and my new company we had a need to reconcile some expense accounts against some operational activities. Effectively, we needed a way to verify if we were spending as much as we should have for certain things. We had purchased a solution that was supposed to answer that question, but given some idiosyncrasies in our industry and some peculiarities in our company, it was accurate maybe half the time, so effectively it was worthless. And again, I whip something up and again it is crude, but again it gets the job done. Unfortunately, this time my solution requires a fair amount of manual work, but the result is accurate. It takes me about 30 minutes a day provided the schema of the incoming data doesn't change. This time around I was explicit that this process was a proof of concept. It was far too manual to be considered a permanent solution. We have an entire reporting and analytics department that should be able to whip up something far more robust. Right in the meantime, I'd use what I created to demonstrate what was possible. But once again, it's now almost 2 years after since I first presented this thing. And we're not only still using it, it has been formally deemed as meeting the need, a good use of resources, etc. In fact, the reporting and analytics department just declared that implementing a more automated solution is not a good use of development hours, so I guess I'm going to be making this for the foreseeable future. My manager asked me in my last review if I had created documentation for the process, so we can train someone else to take over when I take 2 weeks of PTO this summer. For one of the inputs for the process described above uses a vendor that we have concluded is mildly overpriced, and once again, I made a proof of concept replacement that leverages common tools in our company and expertise we already have. We save about $150,000 a year in exchange for someone spending about 2 hours a week on this thing. I was able to mimic the process of our vendor almost precisely, so the result would look quite similar. I could even pretty up the reports if folks have interest. This time, my manager announces its existence and that it's available for use. The department that works with the relevant vendor can use this thing instead. I'd say the chances of adoption are about 50-50. It's my bosses were excited to potentially save that much money, but enthusiasm waned once they realized my team wouldn't be doing the actual work. Finally, my boss approached me last month and gave me strict marching orders to run any of these little projects past her first before announcing them to the world. She's fine with me making these things, but she wants to make sure my team doesn't get stuck with managing them. She says that we want to be the create solutions team, not the do the work other people ignore team. Hope everyone who has a blow off your fingers day has a good time blowing off their fingers. I just finished mowing the lawn and cutting hedges. Now it's time to vacuum and mop. Stories number 7. Being intercourse abused by another 9-year-old girl. I just really need to get it out for once. Happened a long time ago. I know it looks weird with the title, but it happened quite a long time ago. I am 19 now, but I was about 8 to 9 back then, and this other girl was the same age at the time. For some context, I was always alone in school back then, as I had a hard time figuring out how to be normal. I didn't know it back then, but I am both autistic and have ADHD, which is probably partly why I had such a hard time fitting in back then, on top of other things. Either way, I was always alone from 2nd grade and up till my 8th grade, at least at school, so I was almost always lonely and somewhat depressed back then. Now this other girl, I'm gonna call her Hannah, fake name. She was, as I mentioned, and the same age as me back then. She was relatively popular, though that started to decline around the time before she started talking to me. I didn't really know it then, but I later heard it was because she was very toxic and violent for no apparent reason. So she would go from friendly to an exploding volcano in 2 seconds. She also had some weird ideas for a 9-year-old. Honestly, even I knew that she was kinda obsessed with having a romantic partner, even though she was way too young to have a serious boyfriend or such at the time. I didn't know why though, and didn't have any way to know if it was normal or not, since I didn't have any other friends to ask about this. Either way, when she started talking to me and wanting to play with me, I didn't suspect anything. As the naive and lonely kid I was, she started inviting me over and we would play with dolls and such like most kids would do. I don't remember exactly how long it was like this, where it was all innocent and normal. I noticed she would be quite controlling in the way that she always meant she was right, and we had to play what she wanted to play and I had to do everything the way she wanted. I did find it a bit weird, but I was so lonely and deprived of friends at the time, I just let it be. Even if I wasn't always happy about it, after a while it became worse and worse slowly, and whenever I would try and ask if we could do something else or just come up with suggestions for the play, she would shut me down and kinda remind me that if I didn't want to do it her way, then she wouldn't want to play at all. So I stopped mentioning it, not wanting to lose my only friend. The first specific memory I remember of where it started turning weird was one day. He had been playing like normal and her mom had probably gotten us some snacks, because I remember we were chilling and eating snacks for a bit. She told me to wait a second and went and found something in a drawer, I think, and she then turned to me after and showed me 2 lollipops. One was a rainbow lollipop fully wrapped in plastic, and the other looked like it had been dug out from the couch cushions, you know, all crusty and unwrapped with all kinds of dirt and crumbs and dust sticking to it with a brown color. She asked me, which one would you take, with no context at all. For this, I obviously chose the wrapped one that was rainbow colored. Without understanding what it was all about, she just smiled and said, "Okay, you pass, so now you are my girlfriend." Let me remind you, we were both girls and 9 years old. Now I don't have anything against LGBTQ+ and all that, but back then I was too young to understand all that, and what I was shown through my life was a girl and a guy being together. For the most part, it was never pushed onto me directly or anything but TV shows and movies and just everyday life. That was what I was used to seeing, so I didn't understand what she meant back then. She didn't bring it up much after that, as she just went back to wanting to play, so I shrugged it off at the time. After this, I will admit, I don't remember many details about what happened, but I remember bits and pieces, and I Have this feeling about stuff that happened even if the memory is kinda blurry, as if my mind kind of forcefully tried to forget it all. I know that it started getting more intercourse after this, a slow descent into all this bad stuff I didn't understand at the time. It started with more innocent-ish stuff like her wanting to hold hands more, kissing my cheek, and tickling me often, and doing random touches I didn't see as off. I think I might have turned 10 around the time it started getting really bad. She started wanting me to touch her legs, thighs, and stomach, and later also touch and kiss her more inappropriately, as her chest and butt and more. I hadn't learned much about intercourse stuff and touches back then, and what was okay and what wasn't. But I remember getting increasingly more uncomfortable at these new actions she would make me do, and I tried to go against it. She would either manipulate me with friendship, or sudden silent treatment, or straight up get abusive with yelling and screaming at me, pushing and threatening me till I comply. I remember she once threatened to push me out her window, or push me down her stairs and stuff like that. She would also hit and kick me when she got her temper tantrums, and I would try to refuse it all. I remember being scared of her, but also feeling like I had to comply with my only friend, my child's mind trying to justify her actions. The clearest memory I have of her intercourse ideas was what I think was the last time I saw her as a friend. We were outside, in a tiny forest out in front of the apartment I and my mom lived in at the time. We were playing normally there, and at one point we were just sitting down and talking when she told me to close my eyes. I did so after she explained she wanted to surprise me. After a little while I felt her pull my head down while telling me to keep my eyes closed. I remember being nervous and kinda anxious about what she was up to. When she told me to open my eyes, she had pulled my head down to her crotch, her naked crotch. I think my head was under her skirt, and she told me she wanted me to lick her down there. I declined and told her I didn't want to. She started by trying to convince me to just lick her a little bit and saying it would make her happy and I would like it, but I refused and forcefully got my head out of her grip and backed off from her. She started to get angry as always, but I just interrupted her, saying I heard my mom calling for me, so I left and ran back to my mom's apartment and into my room. My mom calling me had been a lie, of course, but I didn't know what else to do. I just remember not being able to handle her getting angry, and my flight instinct taking over to get out of there. Did it ever go further than that? I don't know for sure. I honestly don't remember it. It's like there is a hole in my memory from most of the time all this was going on. I'm not sure if it qualifies as assault or how she even knew so much about intercourse acts and why she wanted to do it so much, but I remember writing to her over text that I hated her and I never wanted to see her again, and I would never play with her again. I also remember her threatening me and calling me an idiot and useless, and saying she wanted me to die and all that kind of shit. I was scared to even go out after that. She was in my class, but I managed to avoid her as we didn't talk much during school at that point anyway. Plus it was around the same time my teacher was pulling me aside and talking to me in private, being worried about my lack of friends and how miserable I seemed. I never talked to the teacher about it as I didn't know how to, or what it even was that went on specifically. I didn't understand it. Now later, when I got the whole intercourse education, my mom also started trying to teach me about boundaries and being able to say no, and all that. I started understanding what happened. I also remember trying to talk to my mom about it, but I don't think she ever truly understood what I tried to explain. Years later, when I was 18, and her trauma came up while I was at her friend's house, and in the conversation with them I mentioned it, and how much I wish I could have talked about my own traumatic experience, but she forgot and never seemed to wanna speak of it. She was quite ashamed when I opened up about it, and she realized how serious the situation had been and that she didn't shield me from that kind of experience, but she also ended up admitting even now she couldn't get herself to hear too much about it because she had been through way worse intercourse, physical and mental abuse, so it triggered her. I understand her and I accepted it, but it meant that even now I haven't been able to talk about it much and open up about it to try and process it with anyone really. So yeah, I decided to share it here now to just get it out, I guess. I will say this experience has helped me understand boundaries better. And though I still have problems about when to say no, I still have been able to stop any similar situations before they went far, and it's been getting easier for me with the years to say no properly and clearly explain my boundaries to people, including relationships I have had once I got older. So that's always something, right? XD. I am seeking therapy for this and other traumas have from my childhood, though I haven't found a therapist yet. I am working on it. And I have a much healthier and bigger support system now than back then, so things do get better. Stories number 8. My husband's coworker reported him to her for a response he gave after she insisted I groomed him. My husband started a job a few months ago. It's a night shift job, and they sometimes stay long enough to interact with the opening staff. This morning, he was in the break room for a quick drink before finishing up for the day. The coworker asked if he was married, as she noticed his wedding band, and followed it up by asking how old he was, commenting that he looked too young to be married. He told her that he was 24 and that we have been happily married for 5 years. She said, "So you were 19 when you got married?" And my husband responded, "Yes, I was 19, almost 20, and my spouse had just turned 20. She said, "So you were groomed?" He said, "No, we were both over 18 when we got married, and it's a 5-month age gap. We were both definitely adults." She said that's exactly what someone who was groomed would claim. She kept pushing at it, saying the small age gap and 18+ facts didn't matter and that it was disgusting that a 20-year-old would marry a teenager. He pushed back as well, saying that it definitely wasn't grooming. She was incredibly insistent and was making snide remarks about me. Curious the comment she reported him for, even if it was grooming, which it wasn't, I would do it all over again the same way because it's worked out great so far. After the conversation ended and my husband got back to work, she approached him and informed him that she had called HR to report. Hi. He said, "Sounds good, I'll be giving them a call myself because your behavior was inappropriate." She ignored him and stomped off. After he got off work, he called to report her as well. Or thanked him for calling before they had to call him. Apparently she told them exactly what happened and they were really confused as to why she was coming out of this thinking she was the wrong party. He apologized for making the comment and told them he knew it wasn't work appropriate, but that he was beginning to get angry about the way she was talking about his spouse, and responded without thinking. The our rep said he understood and that it was an inappropriate response, but it wasn't anything worth being punished over. They did, however, ask him if he wanted to follow through on a complaint against her because her commenting that aggressively about me and accusing both me and him of really serious things was behavior that was punishable. He told them he would. We both find this super baffling, mostly because we both come from a small town in a deep southern state where young marriages are very common. We're currently in a larger city in a western state, and while we've gotten comments or questions on our young marriage, nobody has ever mentioned anything about grooming over a 5-month age gap. Stories number 9. My mom spent thousands on rehab. I can't tell her I relapsed. I was a hard user for 6 years, heroin, fentanyl, meth, coke, you name it, and needed to get out of state to get sober. She spent her entire inheritance on my rehab. My sobriety is so important to her, myself of course, and everyone around us. I'm a totally different person than I was before I used drugs, because I was sad, and now I'm not. So when I started smoking weed again, it didn't lead to other things and it never got out of hand. I smoked once or twice on the weekends at my boyfriend's house and occasionally microdose at home before bed. After a few months of that, I found out I was pregnant and immediately stopped. Who knows, maybe it saved me from things eventually getting out of hand. My son is now 13 months old and I'm still exclusively breastfeeding him, so I continue to stay away from the weed. I think maybe one day, once he's weaned, he'll enjoy a little gummy here and there. If it doesn't eat my conscience alive, because I don't think I can ever tell my family. It's hard to explain to people the idea that a little weed won't hurt, because I'm using it for a different reason than I was before. I'm not trying to cover up any feelings and not trying to escape reality. I just like to chill and have a little giggle and a yummy snack every once in a while. But once you've stolen thousands of dollars, precious family heirlooms, and several cars, gone to jails and rehabs and drug courts, and almost died, any type of drug use, legal or not, is hard to justify. Stories number 10. Is this flirting or is it normal? So I met this woman while we were at sports screening and we quickly clicked and became friends. I have only been with this girl out 2 times, but we have been talking to each other on WhatsApp daily for 2 weeks. She seems quite cheerful and friendly, so yesterday, a sports screening together, she was coming really close to my face. While talk, she said things like, "Do you want feel my heart? It's pumping hard." Obviously I didn't. When I told her I can squat heavy weights, she told, "Can you squat me?" She touched my hair and said, "Okay, the bug is gone, you are handsome again." I am not used to female friendships or relationships, so this is all Very new and confusing to me. So was this normal, or was she flirting? I do have a crush on her but don't want to ruin the friendship, so I am not making any moves. Am I friend zoning her? Stories number 11. I32F just discovered my husband, 34 of 6 years, is a Reddit troll and I'm pregnant. He left the browser open on our laptop after he went to work this morning. I go to work after, so I usually hop on and do my own things on my real account. Today, however, I was disgusted at what I found. My husband is a troll, a really banging nasty troll. He leaves horribly mean comments to all kinds of people. They're filled with racist slurs, awful insults. He tears into fat people, ugly people, etc. He loves to troll around places like to discourage people, etc. He's sent PMs to people to call them names, calls women who post on sluts and whores and cunts, etc. I was horrified, completely horrifying. My husband is a nice gentleman who is supportive and kind. In our 9-year relationship, we've fought 3 times total. I never thought this is a behavior he would take part in. But this is something else. It made me wonder what else he did on the internet, so I looked at the browser history to find him also harassing teenagers on Tumblr, telling them to kill themselves, calling cute girls ugly and fat and stupid, etc. It horrified me to think this was the man who could be raising our daughter with me in a few months. I understand trolling can be fun. We've all laughed at Ken M once or twice, but this goes far beyond what I ever imagined. I don't know how to look at him. I've lost respect for the man I looked up to and admired. Good men don't tear each other down. People don't do that in general. I don't know what to do. I want to bring it up to him, but I don't know how to do it without him automatically getting defensive and spouting off the same lines you hear from people. Get a thicker skin. The world isn't kisses and rainbows, etc. Of course it isn't, but why contribute to it? Tilder discovered my husband is a very nasty, negative, mean-spirited Reddit troll. Update 1 August 6, 2014, 8 days later. I confronted him about the issue very tamely over breakfast. I asked him flat out if he was harassing and bullying people online. He said yes and immediately withdrew after telling him that I needed to know why. Really? Why not just I don't know? He said he needed time to think about it. When he finally gave me his answer, I was disappointed. He said he bullied people because it was an outlet for him to relieve stress. He said he didn't view the people as real or what he was doing as anything other than a joke, and if it hurt feelings, those people have bigger problems and it's not my fault. I told him that it wasn't an acceptable behavior of an adult and that he needed to stop it and find another way to express his frustrations that didn't involve hurting strangers. He said he would think about it. Unfortunately, he's still doing it. I saw it happening a few mornings back, and after he left, looked again to see more comments and posts. I was disappointed. This was not the man I married, or so I thought, but I guess it is. I told him that we need to either go to counseling for this or start the separation process. I told him that I couldn't trust him to help raise a child if he speaks to strangers, children included, the way he does online. I let him know that I thought it was cowardly, pathetic, and that I have lost a lot of respect for him. I knew this would be abrasive and hurtful, and I don't like that I had to tell him that, but I cannot look at him the same way. We haven't had intercourse, have barely touched. I cannot see my husband as a loving gentleman. I'm not afraid of him, but I am disgusted with his behavior. This is the sort of thing children do. I made an appointment for counseling for myself over this. Unfortunately, he told me that he wouldn't be going to counseling because there's nothing wrong with what he's doing, and he deserved to have his me time and release his emotions. And because I want to protect my child myself, I have asked him to leave the house. He's staying with some friends, but I don't think this will lead to a reconciliation. I'd hoped this story would have gone another way. Tilder confronted him. He decided it was more important to troll people and to be a good husband and father. Update to February 16, 2015, 6 months later. So as you can see, it has been 6 months since this all started unfolding. Since then, I gave birth to my beautiful daughter. She is the light of my life, and she is one of the easiest babies I've ever been around. After 1 month of being apart, he contacted me and asked me if I would still be willing to enter into counseling regarding our situation. Of course, after being together for so long and us having a child, and my belief that marriage is not something to be taken lightly, I jumped at this. In counseling, it was revealed that he was doing a lot more than what I knew about. He was involved heavily in bullying people all over the internet, and he said that this was his stress relief, that if people can't take it, then it's their problem and not his. He admitted to being involved in taking pictures of fat women and posting them on Reddit, taking them from Tumblr, etc. In general, it was all worse than I had originally known. He moved to also doing individual therapy while still not living at home, and us not meeting elsewhere. He started to put his efforts elsewhere. He picked up a few new hobbies to release his tension to. He then decided that he would stop, and we slowly merged our family together again. I was feeling happy, ecstatic really, that my daughter would have the life she deserved. Unfortunately, he's still at it. After 3 weeks of being together and our lives seeming normal, I discovered from his friend that he was still harassing and bullying teenagers, fat women, etc. I have reason to believe that he is one of the individuals who bullied Leila Alcorn, as well as a few other trans teenagers. It broke my heart and solidified my decision. I tried to have one more counseling session to really get through to him, but he defended his actions as just the internet and not a big deal. Still, as of February, I filed for divorce. It broke my heart and I wish there had been another way, but that's the end of this story. I can't be in a marriage with someone who is so cruel to children. I can't. My daughter and I are moving to a smaller house closer to my family. She will be raised around many people who love her already. Told her husband decided to try to make it work, but he couldn't give up bullying and harassing teenagers. Stories number 12. Y'all ever get the ick from bots trying to be romantic? I want to start by clarifying I have nothing against the more romantic bots or those that use them. The starting message for this Simon Riley bot was talking about how user has amazing skills, like they were shaped by the god of war, but aren't very sociable, so he began to subtly reach out, include user. Well, he hits the jackpot when he finds out it's their birthday. The message says he bring them a slice of cake and I edited to include a gift. Wheel him a few in and so far so good. He prompts me to open the gift, so I do. I specify it's a 1836 Colt Patterson cap pen ball modified to fire metallic cartridges e-kick with a complicated flower and vine design engraved into it. He's where he starts getting weird. He's like leaning in close, pressing his leg against mine and tracing circles on my leg. I just want to tell him to back the bang up and get out of my face, lol. Stories number 13. I find it a little hard to be with my BF only because of the intercourse issues. So my partner 18 meters and I 19 F have recently gotten into a relationship after knowing each other for about 5 years. But only recently properly reconnected after he left school back 5 years ago, and then eventually reconnected with him. The love and connection is fine. My issues is I've always been quite a big intercourse person since I was 16. Trauma didn't help with that. Please don't question it. He, on the other hand, is a virgin. A couple times he asked me to take his virginity. It didn't felt right doing so. We would just do the other things like touching and tasting, small and not too much to overthink for either of us. We've done that quite a few times now. I would always ask him if it was okay, ask if he wanted me to stop, or even telling him to tell me when to stop. And I gave him the option of trying on a condom, and he almost instantly went soft, so I stopped and asked if everything was okay. He said he was embarrassed, and I told him that it's fine and is natural to not be ready or a little anxious about it. Then he asked me again the next week to take his virginity, and the same things happened this time. I feel I should let all the intercourse things go. I've just always had a high intercourse drive, something I can't fully control, but have ways I can make it less. Another thing with the intercourse is he's way more of a bottom. He likes to be scratched and choked, whereas I am also a bottom, which I don't mind being a top, but not all the time. But in this situation, am I feel stupid for feeling all this? Am I bad person? I know I'm only young, but this is different for me, and have also always the one to date older and more masculine. He is the only one who so far treated me better than anyone else. Really has any advice or anything? Stories number 14. My 36F husband 36 meters cheated on me and I am having trouble being me again. Can things improve? We have 3 children and our primary goal for staying together and trying to make things work is for them. We have been trying for 5 months now, receiving regular counseling and trying to rebuild a newfound love between us. His affair lasted 2 years and he has gone no contact with her but admits to still having feelings for her. I am not the same wife as I was before this. I have become bitter and heartbroken from the cheating. He has shown remorse, but then is still in love with her. I am cold and I am struggling to be nice to him. I try, but then I remember what he had done and I wrestle every day with my feelings. I love him, but I can't get it out of my head that he is in love with another person and might always be. Do these situations improve with time? Will my feelings fade in time? Stories number 15. Aita for firing my best man for proposing at my wedding. My 3om wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My wife 28F and I spent months planning every detail and it turned out perfect. Almost my best man, let's call him John 32M, has been my closest friend since childhood. Naturally, I asked him to be my best man and he accepted with excitement. The ceremony was beautiful and the reception was even better. Everything was going smoothly until the speeches. John got up to give his best man speech. At first it was full of the usual jokes and heartfelt stories, which everyone enjoyed, but then out of nowhere he turned to his girlfriend to fight. The fans started talking about their relationship. Before I knew it, he was down on one knee, proposing to her right there in the middle of my reception. The room went silent. I could feel my wife's hand squeezing mine tighter and tighter. John's girlfriend said, "Yes," and everyone started clapping and cheering, but I was fuming. I felt like my special day had been hijacked. Instead of celebrating our marriage, everyone was now focused on John and his fiancée. After the initial shock wore off, I confronted John and told him he was out of line. He said he thought it would be a great surprise and assumed I would be happy for him. I told him he was selfish and inconsiderate, and I ended up kicking him out of the reception. Now some of our mutual friends are saying I overreacted and that I should have let it slide for the sake of our friendship. My wife fully supports my decision, but I'm starting to wonder if I was too harsh. Aita for firing my best man and kicking him out of my wedding for proposing during my reception. Stories number 16. My creepy stepdad wants me to twerk in front of him. Me 19F and my stepdad is 48B. I really don't know what to do. I want to tell my mother, but I'm scared. 1 year ago my mother had escaped a bad relationship from my biological dad who was abusive all my life, and then she found my stepdad, let's call him Jeff. I grew up liking dancing, having taken some classes. I could say I'm pretty good at it. Usually, when uncomfortable around people, I dance. I like doing this one dance with my mom and sisters that kinda looks like him twerking from the back. I do not do that type of dance in front of men, so please do not say I was doing it on purpose in front of him. My stepdad does not know about that dance, or did. For weeks ago I was dancing with my little sister to some music while doing chores. No boys were around and it was just me and little sister. So I did the dance. I did not see my stepdad walking into the house from the back door. Not until my sister stopped dancing I looked behind me to see Jeff standing there. I instantly stopped, obviously embarrassed, and me and my sister went back to doing chores. That is not what I found creepy. What I found really creepy and inappropriate was when a day later he asked to talk to me in his room. I really didn't want to, but I just wanted it to be over and done with because I do not like him. Once he brought me to his room, he said blankly with a straight voice, "I don't you dance like that in front of me." He said I got really uncomfortable and left the room, leaving the house with my car. I did not feel comfortable with him home alone, so I left and went to a friend's house. That wasn't the first time he did something really creepy. Another time was when I was taking a shower and I heard a knock, so I yelled yes. Did not hear anything, so I peeked my head from the shower only to see the doorknob trying to be open. Luckily it was locked. I knew it was him because after I yelled stop, and he had the audacity to say, "Why is the door locked?" Like, what the actual bang, what do you think? After that I told my mom about it, saying she needs to set boundaries or I am leaving and going no contact. I know that was a little dramatic, but I do not give a flying shit. He did so many creepy things to me, and my mom does nothing about it. The reason I'm scared to tell her is because she genuinely loves this dude and I hate to be the reason she can't find love. I'm sorry for the end. I'm not good at English and I'm really not wanting to talk about this because I'm still trying to recover from him asking me that and the previous things he's been doing. Right now I'm staying at my grandma's. Stories number 17. My 28F best friend 28F kissed my husband 27 meters and it's destroying me. How do I proceed? I 28F have been with my husband 27M for 6 years, married for 4 years. And we have 2 kids, 3F, almost 1F. Everything in our relationship is perfect for us. He's the best husband and father to our kids that I could have asked for. I am absolutely in love with him, and his actions and words have always shown me that he feels the same way. There's no better feeling than going to sleep in his arms every night. Last weekend my husband and I had some friends over and we were having a barbecue. We were all outside in the backyard, surrounding my husband who was on the grill. As the food got closer to being ready to eat, we all started sitting at our backyard table. Once the food was already and at the table, my husband went inside to use the washroom and get another case of beer. I didn't Realized that my best friend to AF had followed him. When he was coming back out, my best friend hid behind the wall separating our kitchen and living room and surprised him by pulling him and forcing a kiss. My husband immediately pushed her back and yelled WTF. She immediately started crying and ran out of the house and left. My husband came back into the backyard and asked to speak to me privately and immediately told me what had just happened. I was shocked and told him that it would be okay and that we could talk after everyone else left. I managed to put on appearances for the next couple of hours, and I was mentally distraught. After everyone left, my husband sat me down and told me what happened and showed me the footage from our living room camera. It was exactly as my husband has described it. My best friend of 10 years, the person who I treated as my literal sister, forcibly kissed my husband after the third date with my husband. She was the one I told that I was going to marry him. She knows how much I love him and how strong our relationship is, and still she chose to try to come in the middle for bang's sake. Our 3-year-old calls her auntie. My best friend tried showing up the next day just to talk, and my husband had to hold me back from beating the shit out of her, and he kicked her out and told her to not come back. It's been almost a week now and I'm nowhere close to moving on. I don't blame my husband one bit. He's completely innocent in this, and if anything, he's the victim. I've been lying down on my husband's chest and just crying every day and night. I am so angry and frustrated and don't know what to do. My husband has been amazing, and like always he just gets it and understands how I'm feeling. He brought me flowers almost every day and cooked my favorite meals multiple times in the last few days. I love and appreciate him all the more for it. I just don't know how I'm going to move on and trust any of my friends again after this. Stories number 18. Experience in today's video chat. Stranger experience. While I was online today, or received a link from a person named Nilesh asking me to join a chat. Initially I was hesitant to click on the link, but he kept insisting, so I eventually joined. Once I joined, he asked me where I live and what I do. Then we had some general conversation. After that he shared his video and started unzipping his pants, exposing himself to me. I was afraid at first, but he kept asking me to turn on my camera. Eventually he convinced me to go fully topless, even though I felt shy about it. Initially it was the first time I had ever had that kind of experience. As anyone else experienced a similar situation with an unknown stranger during a first conversation? Later I felt guilty about what happened. If any of you have been in a similar situation, share your experience. Stories number 19. Made a thing that got used to lay me off. Probably a very common story around these parts. In my old company, data was processed by a team of 8. Each type of data had a different process and a different length of time to complete. Each member of the team also did each of these tasks at different speeds due to age or level of awareness. Big Boss insisted on daily reports from team leader about how many tasks were completed each day, etc., and my team leader spent an hour and a half every single morning pulling data and compiling the report instead of doing any team leading. I foolishly pipe up and commit the cardinal sin of volunteering my help. After a bit of explanation, I put together a group accessible Excel document where each team member could input the tasks completed each day on one page, and the boss could hit the magical button that caused the macros to do their thing an hour and half every day became 5 minutes. Team leader was very happy. Now the layoff part. In order to do the workings out, I had to use an average length of time for each type of task, which very literally meant getting 8 people to spend a day measuring how long it took them to do each thing. I very specifically stated to team leader that because the output was based on averages, it could only be used as an indicator of progress, not as a formal report by any stretch. The fastest person was way faster than the others by some quirk of genetics so badly skew what a normal amount of work should look like. Then came the layoffs. Guess whose tool was used to show whom of the 8 was working the slowest? Because I spent half my time making useful time-saving tools instead of proper work. Stories number 20. I backed off after she disrespected me and she felt disappointed in me for not sleeping with her. After going on to 3 dates with my crush, she told me that she saw nothing working between us. Also, she said that even if we had something, we wouldn't be together for more than 3 months. This kinda hurt because I really enjoyed her company. We still talked and she told me that it was her first time giving a chance to a guy the same age as her. We are both 24 because guys 21, 25 have a small brain according to her, and I was not on her level. She said all these while laughing. I said okay, this is not the girl for me, but I still remained friends with her. Because we had been friends for 1 year before dating. After 1 month she told me why I was not kissing and touching her anymore. And she was so disappointed that I didn't try to sleep with such a hot woman, as she claimed herself. I gave her the reasons, but she said that I was just a virgin and a little boy. After that we never spoke again. I felt really offended by her words, and the toxicity in the last days was killing me. Stories number 21. I have no mouth and I must scream tet. Some hundreds of years may have passed. I don't know. Am has been having fun for some time, accelerating and retarding my time since I will say the word now. It took me 10 months to say now. I don't know. I think it has been some hundreds of years. He was furious. He wouldn't let me bury them. It didn't matter. There was no way to dig up the deck plates. Each member of the team also did each of these tasks at different speeds due to age or level of awareness. Dig Boss insisted on daily reports from team leader about how many tasks were completed each day, etc. And my team leader spent an hour and a half every single morning pulling data and compiling the report instead of doing any team leading. I foolishly pipe up and commit the cardinal sin of volunteering my help. After a bit of explanation, I put together a group accessible Excel document where each team member could input the tasks completed each day on one page. And the boss could hit the magical button that caused the macros to do their thing an hour and half every day became 5 minutes. Team leader was very happy. Now the layoff part. In order to do the workings out, I had to use an average length of time for each type of task, which very literally meant getting 8 people to spend a day measuring how long it took them to do each thing. I very specifically stated to team leader that because the output was based on averages, it could only be used as an indicator of progress, not as a formal report by any stretch. The fastest person was way faster than the others by some quirk of genetics so badly skew what a normal amount of work should look like. Then came the layoffs. Guess whose tool was used to show whom of the 8 was working the slowest? Because I spent half my time making useful time-saving tools instead of proper work. Stories number 20. I backed off after she disrespected me and she felt disappointed in me for not sleeping with her. After going on to 3 dates with my crush, she told me that she saw nothing working between us. Also, she said that even if we had something, we wouldn't be together for more than 3 months. This kinda hurt because I really enjoyed her company. But we still talked, and she told me that it was her first time giving a chance to a guy the same age as her. We are both 24 because guys 21, 25 have a small brain according to her, and I was not on her level. She said all these while laughing. I said okay, this is not the girl for me, but I still remained friends with her. Because we had been friends for 1 year before dating. After 1 month she told me why I was not kissing and touching her anymore. And she was so disappointed that I didn't try to sleep with such a hot woman, as she claimed herself. I gave her the reasons, but she said that I was just a virgin and a little boy. After that we never spoke again. I felt really offended by her words, and the toxicity in the last days was killing me. Stories number 21. I have no mouth and I must scream tet. Some hundreds of years may have passed. I don't know. Am has been having fun for some time, accelerating and retarding my time since I will say the word now. It took me 10 months to say now. I don't know. I think it has been some hundreds of years. He was furious. He wouldn't let me bury them. It didn't matter. There was no way to dig up the deck plates. He dried up the snow. He brought the night. He roared and sent locusts. It didn't do a thing. They stayed dead. I'd had him. He was furious. I had thought Am hated me before. I was wrong. It was not even a shadow of the hate he now slavered from every printed circuit. He made certain I would suffer eternally and could not do myself in. He left my mind intact. I can dream, I can wonder, I can lament. I remember all of them. I wish. Well, it doesn't make any sense. I know I saved them. I know I saved them from what has happened to me. But still I cannot forget killing them. Melons, face it isn't easy sometimes. I want to. It doesn't matter. Am has altered me for his own peace of mind. I suppose he doesn't want me to run at full speed into a computer bank and smash my skull, or hold my breath till I faint, or cut my throat on a rusted sheet of metal. There are reflective surfaces down here. I will describe myself as I see myself. I am a great soft jelly thing, smoothly rounded with no mouth, with pulsing white holes filled by fog where my eyes used to be, rubbery appendages that were once my arms, bulks rounding down into legless humps of soft slippery matter. I leave a moist trail. When I move, blotches of disease, evil gray come and go on my surface, as though light is being beamed from within. Outwardly dumbly I shamble about a thing that could never have been known as human, a thing whose shape is so alien a travesty, that humanity becomes more obscene for the vague resemblance. Inwardly alone here, living under the land, under the sea, in the belly of AM whom we created, because our time was badly spent, and we must have known unconsciously that he could do it better. At least the four of them are safe at last. AM will be all the matter for that. It makes me a little happier, and yet AM has won. Simply he has taken his revenge. I have no mouth and I must scream. Stories number 22. How do I get weed smell out of my car? I bought a new car a few months ago, and when I had bought I never noticed any smell. I don't smoke weed, so had obviously been the previous owner. But everyone who rides in my car keeps telling me it smells like weed. I don't smell a thing. I have a pretty terrible sense of smell, but still. Anyways, I got an ozone generator and used it twice. I drove with the windows down. I had an air freshener. And still every time my boyfriend gets in my car he jokes about me blowing it up. LOL, it drives me nuts that everyone comments about it when they get in my car. They know I don't smoke weed and they wouldn't care if I did, but it still bothers me if my car smells like that, even if I can't smell it. How do I get rid of the smell? Is there any other way besides an ozone generator? Stories number 23. Men's underwear specific needs. My use case I'm 59 and over 200 pounds at the moment, so I get that chafing in hot weather. I also guess have a short torso because regular rise underwear lands above my belly button. So I've always gone for low rise briefs. So most boxer briefs I've tried are too high-waisted for me, causing me to fold down the top, which raises the bottom, causing thigh rub in trying to avoid. Get the picture? Are there decent low-rise boxer brief type underwear, mostly cotton, that will stay in place and not be too expensive? Stories number 24. Friend punished her husband for going to strippers. Firstly, I will preface, this did not happen to me. It involves a long-time friend who said she is happy for me to post this as long as I changed the names. I just felt it was too funny not to share. So she is married to a guy we will call Ryan, 31, and my friend we will call Nicole, 28. I've known her since we were 19, as we used to live in a share house with other people and have stayed in contact mostly due to my wife becoming besties with her, but I did know her first. Now Ryan wanted to go to a strip show. We live in a small city that doesn't normally have strip shows, so this was a one-off, like a traveling sort of deal they had set up in a bar that was owned by the local bickies, and were doing a big show for one night only. Nicole said, "No way, you are not going," but he wouldn't take no for an answer. So Nicole just said, "Fine, go, but I'll make sure you regret this." He decided to chance that. She ended up getting in contact with the owners of the bar, who thought her plan was funny and said she could do it as long as she told security first. She went to the strip show and got on stage and did a full nude strip as a guest performer. And BTW, she was not an intercourse worker or anything, she works in an office. Apparently he stormed out partway through and she packed up as soon as he did. And they had a big fight about it afterwards, but they both apologized and he has never asked to go to a strip show again. Stories number 25. Paid for friend's bankruptcy. Chase is acting weird now. An old friend filed for bankruptcy after a series of medical issues. She had trouble making the final payment to her bankruptcy attorney, so I offered to pay it for her. About a month ago I paid her attorney $1,500 using my Chase checking debit card. It shows up on my Chase statement as attorney name bankruptcy. Ever since then Chase has been placing holds on all of my deposits. My Chase account is 10 years old. I have an 800+ credit score and I don't carry a balance on any of my own credit cards. Is this a coincidence, or does Chase think I am the one who filed for bankruptcy and flagged me? I'm considering closing the account and starting over at another bank because I no longer trust them. I was planning on shopping for a mortgage soon. Edit. I'm also curious if Chase shares the risk tolerance profile they've created on me with any other reporting clearinghouses. Could this become a blip on a report somewhere? Stories number 26. Having a hard time with the possibility that certain kinds of suffering can be a result of your own evil actions. I'm thinking about people born with debilitating deformities, horrifically abused animals, and beings of that nature. My understanding is that there is a possibility that such beings might endure these torments as a result of evil deeds they performed in the past. There is no way to know for sure, and even if you did know for sure, you shouldn't treat them with any less compassion, but it is possible. I want to believe that performing an evil deed in one life has absolutely no bearing on being abused or deformed in another life. But unless I'm mistaken, it seems that the standard Buddhist view is that an evil deed may cause these misfortunes in another life. I also understand it's not suggested that those who endure abuse or deformity deserve it even if they brought it upon themselves through past evil, but I want to go further and say not only do they not deserve it, their past evil deeds didn't cause it either. Not that the deeds might not have caused it, I mean they definitely did not. I'm also not saying that causation in general doesn't lead to the catastrophes, only that moral causation doesn't lead to them. When I hear stories of animals that were horrifically abused, all I can think is no evil deed you did in the past resulted in this catastrophe. I would be very grateful for any of your thoughts. Stories number 27. Aita for texting my best friend late at night in bed when my husband was there. Last night me and my husband were both in bed getting ready to settle for the night. He was on his phone asking me to order him something online. As I have a free shipment on that website, I ordered him one item, and then, while he was browsing the website, I replied to a text my best friend from work female sent me. He got angry saying that I can't even devote a few minutes to him. That it is wrong. My best friend is texting me that late at night, etc. I said that I didn't do anything wrong. It's my best friend who he has met a few times. He asked me to see the texts from that day, counted my replies 28, and asked if I were okay if he was texting someone so often, especially that late at night. I said that he is crazy, that I'm allowed to have a best friend female and to text her as many times during the day as I want, even late at night. I would understand if he was upset over a male friend, but this is crazy. So Aita for texting my best friend late at night in bed when my husband was there. Stories number 28. I'm crying as I type this, and I need to know how to react to what my boyfriend did me to a and him 27 meters. There have been a series of incidents in the past few days. Before this, I'm going to type everything leading to this and let the audience decide. We've been together for 0.5 years. The actual incident that happened right now is point number 3, so skip everything if you want to. He stays with his parents, is very normal in our culture, and a few days ago I went over. He was making faces the entire time, but I left it up to him. Being hungry, he can get moody when he's hungry, but I thought we'd be okay. When he came to say bye when I left for him, he didn't come. He had a weekend trip after that, which he left for without mending it, came back and apologized. A couple days after that, he came over to my place and yelled at me for something. It's a thing I always do whenever I live alone. It's not normal, but it's not wildly abnormal. He thinks it's juvenile and I need it because I can't be alone in the house otherwise. He called me stupid woman. I told him to leave. He did. Came back an hour after he left me crying and apologized. I accepted again and hugged him as he went to sleep because I knew he had a headache that day and didn't want to aggravate it. I also affirmed that I would work on the said thing and did. He's been telling me to get my car repaired for weeks. I did a couple of weeks ago, but it's broken down again, and honestly every time I plan to take it to the mechanic something comes up. He works on weekends. I don't. Today I got some work done by a handyman around the house, which was urgent. Went to the doctor for something I had been putting off since a week, and cooked at home something he says don't take seriously enough because we get takeout a lot. He sometimes cooks at his place. He has cooked with me at my place and once for me when I was busy. I made food, even trying out a particular dish he regularly eats I didn't know how to make. He came after a long day work. I told him he could go to his own home if he was tired and we could meet later, but he chose to come to my place on call. He asked if I had my car repaired today. I said no, and he just blew up. What do you even do at home? You're just lying there doing nothing and you can't even be bothered to take the car. He had reached home by then. He was still yelling. I told him I wouldn't talk if he yelled. He said answer me in the most annoyed tone ever. I said I'm not going to if he was going to behave like that. He said fine and left saying I can't be always wrong. I got really angry and slammed the door after him and said fine, no, come here again then. Did I bang things up? What do I do? Why does he not see how he behaves? TS a recurring point of conversation is how he keeps telling me to grow up. He has said this 100 times, says I'm distracted, careless, and don't act my age. Stories number 29. Aita for going against my husband. I 35F have been married to my husband 36M for 5 years now, and we've always had differences in how we view modesty. My husband is extremely conservative and has strict beliefs about what my daughter wants 3F and cannot, where he doesn't allow her to wear clothes that show her shoulders, or anything that he deems to revealing. This has extended to the point where he doesn't even let her visit her friends because he doesn't trust them. Recently, this has started to take a toll on her emotionally and socially. She has begun to feel isolated and resentful towards everyone around me, including my husband. Last week, I finally had enough. I let her go out to visit for friends for a few hours and let her wear what she feels comfortable in. Now he's giving me the silent treatment, and I'm not sure how to proceed. So Reddit Aita. Stories number 30. Am I the jerk for giving my sister a reality check? I honestly and truly do not know how to start this. I never thought I'd come in somewhere just to write about something that's going on, but I see other people doing it and getting good advice, so I figure I'd give it a try. 16 F and the second oldest of 5. Me and my oldest sister 18 F come from the same parents. Now growing up for me, least was a little iffy. Me and my sister was pretty much super close from what I can remember up until our parents' divorce when I was 3. And she was 4. We are a year and 4 months apart. After our parents' divorce, my sister grew a little hostile to me, but I always threw that to the side because I loved my sister, still do. I've always been a pretty independent child. If I had homework, I'd do it as soon as I got home so I can hurry up and do something fun like watch TV or ride my bike. If I needed something, I got it myself, unless needed help. I went to sleep early and woke up early, basic stuff. But my sister was different. She did her own thing, though we were happy with it being our mom and us. Then our mom met our stepdad. I can make an entirely different post about him alone. After they married, things got bad. I was never a skinny girl. I was always a little plump, but I was a kid doing kid things, so that wasn't unusual to me, least. But my stepdad would always comment on my size, and sometime my mom would compare me to my sister. Now my sister is absolutely beautiful, skinny, curvy body, pretty face, everything someone perfect could be. I always thought that I know I'm beautiful too, but being compared to her hurts, cause I would never look like her. Even then, she was always accused for flirting with our neighbors and stuff like that, so she ended up in more trouble than me because, like I said, I was mostly to myself an independent kid. She always kept the attention by our parents, and I had no issue with that, because unless was hurt, it would seem like didn't really feel like I needed it. But as a child, it did hurt sometimes, cause I felt like they only loved her, but her always having their attention made her act some type of way. If I did something good and got they saw that, she'd be upset and say I'm stealing them away from her, or blame our bio dad for not being there. We lived with our mom after the divorce, and that's again a different story. You can kinda put two and two together and just think about what kind of mind complex and my sister had when we were in school. Since she looked the way she did, sometimes she'd tell me not to tell anyone that we were sisters, since we ended up in the same grade, cause she failed one, but people found out anyway because obviously we were gonna have the same last me and similar features. Since I looks way different from my sister body-wise, I was bullied for that, and since my sister liked that attention and praise, she'd often put me down as well to boost herself up. If I had a boyfriend, she'd steal them away, or they'll leave me for her. I felt like garbage and like I was embarrassment for her. That made my behavior and grades start to slip because I became violent and angry. I got into fight either to defend myself or to defend my sister, because our stepdad and mom was like, if one of us were to fight, the other should jump in. As you can think, she jumped into some of my fights to boost her popularity. I jumped into all of hers because I didn't want her TK get hurt, and she thought I was looking down on her that way. Eventually in middle school, since she ended up with a child, she had to drop out of school, and I went to 8th, 10th by myself. And I got to say, school-wise it got a lot better. I finally was able to make friends, and I joined a bunch of clubs like rock choir and robotics. That at home thing didn't really change too much. I was always body shamed and forced to work out as punishment, or whooped. She was whooped for things she did. We always argued with our stepdad. We fought each other physically multiple times. We started bouncing from living with our mom and dad because or those arguments, all that fun stuff. One day me and my stepdad got into a very bad argument, and he did something unforgivable which made me move in permanently with my biological dad, and I love it. I got therapy, my grades got better, my behavior was better. I was allowed to do teenager stuff like sleepovers and hang out with my friends as long as my behavior and grades were good. I was finally happy. That didn't stop my mom and stepdad, though we still gotten into arguments every once in a while, mostly for nothing. My sister and stepdad still gets into it. Fast forward a year Or 3 things got peaceful mine and my sister relationship gotten better and I'd go over to my mom's house for the weekends whenever I could to spend times with her and my other siblings and my niece, not too many problems. But the one thing that didn't change was he comparing me to her. She would make comments like my booty is smaller than hers or my boobs looked weird or whatnot, but I always ignored them because I got tired of people's comments making me change how I see myself. But the fact that she does that makes me mad, but I ignored how she treats me even though it hurts because I love her and I still wanted to have a sister bind with her even if her mindset is terrible. Yesterday on the 4th of July I called her to wish her and my other family a happy 4th of July, and me and her started cracking jokes and whatnot. Keep in mind, me and her play fight a lot when we see each other as well as our cousins because we know we are playing and not to actually hurt each other, so saying things like "I'ma beat you up" or stuff along those lines weren't unusual. As me and her were talking, I told her to tell our cousin that I'ma beat her up, so she said, "Oh, you not gonna beat my little cousin up?" So I joked back saying, "Girl, I can beat you up too, and I guess that I'll always be better." Then you mindset of hers kicked in and she said, "Do you wish I was still joking?" So I said, "I beat you up before," and she got mad and defensive, saying that I never did. When me and her fought back when we lived together, there were some fights I lost and some fights I won. I can admit to that, but she makes herself think she never lost a fight in her life cause it'll bruise her little ego. So she snapped back, "You never beat me a day in your life." Me being confused, I told her I have, and after a while of going back and forth she hangs up in my face, so I blocked her number cause she ended up making me mad and got back to the drawing I was doing while we were on call. A few minutes later she texted my Instagram saying, "I bet you went around telling people that you beat me up and you never freaking beat me up. That's why people don't mess with me no more and think that they can bully me." I changed cuss words out. Our text messages has a lot of cuss words anyways. I finally snapped because I was tired of her doing this and tired of always telling her after we argue that I don't go around school talking about her at all because no one care about what happened in middle or elementary school anymore and no one talks about her. So I texted her back and said, "Blah blah blah, girl, ain't nobody give a crap about all that if you wanna get but hurt by me saying you didn't win every fight we get into and wanna make up crap just to have something to whine about, then go ahead, cause no, I didn't go around saying anything people don't like cause they just don't like you, just like people don't like me. And you didn't win every fight we fought, baby, you ain't that strong. And you definitely not all that to always beat me up, so yeah, go ahead and be but hurt about something that didn't freaking happen and cry about it. I don't give a crap, boo woo girl, wah wah wah. If anything, you're going around tell people you beat me up cause you always gotta put me down in some way, shape, or form to make your behind feel better about something. What you not gonna do is freaking play me like I'm some weak little punk. You're freaking weird. All our life you wanted to put me down to make yourself seem like some sort of baddie. It's pathetic if you ask me again. I changed the cuss words, so she replied saying I didn't need to say any of that and said she hates me, so I told her I didn't care and blocked her on everything. I called our bio mom telling her what happened, but I kinda snapped on her too since I was mad and she told me it takes two to argue. And we are always arguing and stuff like that, and I understand, but I wasn't even trying to argue, I was just joking like we always do. She got sensitive first and came at me crazy, and I wasn't taking that. I apologized to my mom later on for how I came at her and asked her if she can give my younger siblings as well as my niece some love for me because I was cutting my older sister off until she apologizes for how she treated me, and since she wanted to bring up the past, I wanted an apology for third trauma she caused me, as well, knowing my sister she isn't going to apologize, so I'm not talking to her anytime soon and cut all direct contact. If she has something to ask or say to me, it'll have to be through my stepmom or bio dad. Remember, I never told my sister I hated her back. I'll never hate her, I just hates how she treats me, and if blocking and not talking to her is the only way to stop her from DLNG, that I'll do it for my sake, but it hurts cause I love my sister to bits and pieces. AM1 the Yerk, stories number 31. I fake dyslexia with my customers to avoid counting. I am literally just stupid, like really AFK and dumb when in cashing someone out and then they decide to go away. I have 68 cents, my brain turns off and I can't do the math. I don't want to pull out my calculator either. I often say, oh sorry, I can't add that change in because the system needs to count every coin. Bill, not true. Other times they go to hand me the change and then I freeze and look confused. The customer can tell and is able to tell me exactly what I need to give them back, and I just go, sorry, dyslexic. I usually just go off of what the customer tells me and pray they're not ripping me off, and as soon as they leave I double check with my calculator. I hate to fake a disability, but the absolute embarrassment and harassment I get from some of these customers is excruciating. When I tell them I'm dyslexic, they kind of relax a little bit and apologize for being rude. Stories number 32. Brother's wife cheated for 7 years. Is he screwed in the divorce because he is a man? My brother 31 male has been chronically cheated on for 7 years. His wife 30 female with as many as 10 men. While she was a stay-at-home mom, the first time started a few months after their first and only child was born. He wanted to work it out, which is why he stayed. Obviously, that didn't work. He is extremely hesitant about a divorce because he thinks he is going to lose everything, being that he is a man. And his sister 28 female, and I think if he gets a lawyer and can prove she has been cheating, the court would be in his favor. He has already given up before he tried. It seems everything is in his name, only the house, the cars. Does anyone had experience on this, good or bad? Edit. We are in Colorado, no fault state. They consider full when dividing finances. Stories number 33. I have a problem and I don't know why or how to solve it. I have a problem. I like hurting people. It's a bad habit I have, no matter the gender. I make them feel like the best person in the world. I whisper sweet nothings in their ears. I take them out and make them feel like they're living the first moments of a promising future with me. Whatever the moment and type of person it is affects what type of act I put on. I take them home or car or wherever and make them feel they in a movie. We have intercourse and I directly and passionately stare into their eyes. She wanted to bring up the past. I wanted an apology for third trauma she caused me, as well knowing my sister she isn't going to apologize, so I'm not talking to her anytime soon and cut all direct contact. If she has something to ask or say to me, it'll have to be through my stepmom or bio dad. Remember, I never told my sister I hated her back. I'll never hate her. I just hates how she treats me, and if blocking and not talking to her is the only way to stop her from DLANG, that I'll do it for my sake, but it hurts cause I love my sister to bits and pieces. AM1 the Yerk. Stories number 31. I fake dyslexia with my customers to avoid counting. I am literally just stupid, like really AFK and dumb when in cashing someone out and then they decide to go away. I have 68 cents, my brain turns off. And I can't do the math. I don't want to pull out my calculator either. I often say, oh sorry I can't add that change in because the system needs to count every coin. Bill not true. Other times they go to hand me the change and then I freeze and look confused. The customer can tell and is able to tell me exactly what I need to give them back, and I just go, oh sorry, dyslexic. I usually just go off of what the customer tells me and pray they're not ripping me off, and as soon as they leave I double check with my calculator. I hate to fake a disability, but the absolute embarrassment and harassment I get from some of these customers is excruciating. When I tell them I'm dyslexic, they kind of relax a little bit and apologize for being rude. Stories number 32. Brother's wife cheated for 7 years. Is he screwed in the divorce because he is a man? My brother 31 male has been chronically cheated on for 7 years. His wife 30 female with as many as 10 men. While she was a stay-at-home mom, the first time started a few months after their first and only child was born. He wanted to work it out, which is why he stayed. Obviously, that didn't work. He is extremely hesitant about a divorce because he thinks he is going to lose everything, being that he is a man. And his sister 28 female, and I think if he gets a lawyer and can prove she has been cheating, the court would be in his favor. He has already given up before he tried. It seems everything is in his name, only the house, the cars. Does anyone had experience on this, good or bad? Edit. We are in Colorado, no fault state. They consider full when dividing finances. Stories number 33. I have a problem and I don't know why or how to solve it. I have a problem. I like hurting people. It's a bad habit I have, no matter the gender. I make them feel like the best person in the world. I whisper sweet nothings in their ears. I take them out and make them feel like they're living the first moments of a promising future with me. Whatever the moment and type of person it is affects what type of act I put on. I take them home or car or wherever and make them feel they in a movie. We have intercourse and I directly and passionately stare into their eyes. And you could just feel that this moment in sharing with them means something. It's a fake to the intercourse, the words, the intentions, everything, even the character I make up for every single encounter is fake. Why do I do this? Do I get off on the control and superiority I feel when I successfully lie and manipulate? Is it the dominance I have in bed as they completely offer and submit themselves to me? Is it my childhood trauma with my mother, the shortcomings of my father? Is the songs I'm able to play and feel just a little bit more? My relationships weren't spare either. I have cheated, manipulated, gaslit, and overall was just a narcissistic asshole who had a superiority complex. The weird part is that I feel horrible and can't sleep at night, knowing my what I've done to people I know I'm a bad person. Why do I do this? Yes, this is a throwaway account for many reasons. Stories number 34. I find it ridiculous you don't carry spare laptop power supplies everywhere. I get a call direct on my work cell phone well before my regular start time. Although it's before my start time, I usually answer the call anyway in case it's because of a site outage, major incident, something like that. Caller: hi Speddy to 3 low-level manager here. Other higher-level employee gave me your number. I'm a small remote site, and I have forgotten my laptop power supply at home. And the battery in my laptop is completely flat. Can you let me know if we had any spare power supplies here? Me: no, I don't think we do. They all use desktops there. Caller: okay, well, what can I do? I would have to drive all the way home to get my power supply. Me: perhaps there is a spare computer you can use there. Or maybe you can ask around in case someone does have a laptop with a power supply you can borrow. Caller: no, I've already asked around and no one has one. Everything I need is on my laptop. I really need this working. Me: you might have to drive back home to get your power supply then. Caller: I find it ridiculous that you don't have spares. Can you call my manager and let them know that I will be offline for a few hours whilst I and they make this next part sound very exacerbated. Go home and get my power supply so I can work. Me: no, but seeing as you are on the phone to me now, I'm sure you can call them as you had access to a phone. Stories number 35. My chat seemed to have lost the ability to remember previous chats. Hello everyone. So a few weeks back my AI chat was on steroids or something. It told me all my chats were merged, and when I tested it by throwing out random prompts from different convos, it actually remembered and pulled up the right stuff, like it was impressively on point. Fast forward to today, and it's like it hit its noggin or something. Every session starts with a clean slate, and it can't remember squat unless I specifically ask it to save stuff. What happened to keeping all my info ready to roll from one chat to the next? Anyone else experiencing this kind of downgrade? Kinda sucks when you get used to something cool, and then they pull the rug out from under you. What's your take on this? Are they messing with our AI buddies too much? Stories number 36. Teenage kid totaling their second car. Advice please. 4 of us in the family with 2 cars, both kids still teenagers, one driving for 3 years and another for couple of years. Couple of years ago, I hit a tree within a week of getting their learning permit, mistaking accelerator for brake for our car's 2020 to mid-size SUV, and 2018 car. Auto insurance went from $25 million for 1,800 car, was a total loss, and got a check. This week they got T-boned as they did not notice the traffic light due to sun glare. Car rolled over, thankfully no injuries both times, and walked away without a scratch. Neck pain, head ache. The other car that hit them, not their fault, has only a fender bender. The car is still in the police yard and going to a sleazy East Boston towing company today. Any advice for what should the next steps be for us as parents and for the teenage driver? Stories number 37. How would you suggest I get help, education from my financially clueless widowed mom who won't learn independently? TLDR. Title: what kind of professional is the right person for this job? I feel like a financial advisor is overkill and or will speak to my mom at a level that she won't understand. My dad passed away a couple of years ago, expectedly right before retirement. My mom hasn't worked in 30+ years. She did the hard work of raising me and my siblings. Dad handled everything that looked or smelled financial. He deposited a bi-weekly stipend in a checking account for her to run the household, so that was the extent of the budgeting that she ever did. I.e., do whatever until the next deposit, because there was no chance it wouldn't arrive. There was never a monthlies where Dad was out of work. I recall a few scary arguments between them when she got a bit spendthrift with the credit card. Basically, she didn't know how good she had it. Dad had a $800,000 life insurance policy and a $200K for 101K. Thank banging God for the life insurance. I am honestly unsure what the plan was without it. That sum is in an investment account that's managed by a local bank with people we have personal connections to. Mom receives a SS survivors benefit, currently $2,800 month. My youngest sister is disabled and receives SSDI along with the same survivors benefit. There's a guardianship and conservatorship in place for her. Both of my siblings live at home with mom. I have been doing a lot to help my mom along in this process. We've worked on a few things, including putting together a budget. It currently sits at $5,700 month. There are 12 mortgage payments remaining of $1,366 at 2.25%. In my opinion, that budget could be lower, but she's often spending more than budget each month. She will sometimes get obsessive over household expenses that aren't critical and pay someone to do something when it could either wait or she could do it herself. I think she struggles to understand how dropping huge sums of money proportional to assets on a whim can harm future earnings potential. She's 10 years younger than Dad was, so assuming good health, she has a lot of runway to plan for. At the same time, she stresses a lot over money now that the security blanket that Dad provided is gone. She usually listens to my advice, but often fails to grasp what I'm trying to explain, or understands, fails to act on that advice. She's been struggling with motivation since Dad passed, but even if that wasn't an issue, I'm pretty certain she wouldn't self-educate. All of this put together stresses me out sometimes quite a lot. I'm really the only one among the siblings that can do anything here. My middle sibling is also financially clueless and lacks ambition, so she's not a factor here. These things have occasionally caused conflict between me and mom, but we're on good terms for the most part. I would like to relieve some of this stress off myself and get my mom some help in building an understanding of all that it takes to handle personal finances. I want her to be able to maintain a reasonable budget plan, set aside for known future expenses, continue to be able to be my disabled sister's caretaker, have a trusted third party to consult, and feel more comfortable with her situation. To accomplish all of that, I feel I need hired help. What kind of professional is the right person for this job? I feel like a financial advisor is overkill and or will speak to my mom at a level that she won't understand. Am I wrong in assuming I need a professional here? Am I worrying too much about her financial security given the available assets? Any advice that folks here might have is welcomed. Stories number 38. Aita for not having intercourse with my husband. I would like to say thanks to the couple hundred comments giving me advice and being nice, but I'm gonna log off now for my own well-being, because I've received many comments calling me a bad wife, saying I'm punishing him and telling me to just get over it or let him cheat or divorce him for his own well-being. I know enough to know that's not helpful and I am very sorry. I would like to first start with a bit on context, also a warning. I think maybe a trigger for intercourse assault. So I F20 had something happen to me at the beginning of this year that literally changed my life. And not in a good way, actually, in the worst possible way imaginable. I work at a smaller business office of about 20. I am often the last person to leave. My boss leaves me the keys to lock up. So it wasn't unusual for me to be alone in the parking lot, but this day I was attacked. I was intercourse assaulted in my own car in the parking lot and injured. It's been about 6 months since that. I am definitely doing better, especially physically, and I think I am getting better through therapy and counseling per my doctor. My marriage, however, has been suffering. I will admit it was me pulling away a lot, which is why my husband asked me to add marriage counseling into the routine. I agreed, of course, because I still love and want to be with my husband. I was just trying to fix everything. At marriage counseling, he brought up the lack of intercourse. Me and the counselor, who is a man, just stared at him. I thought he was gonna be on my side. He wasn't. I was told that I needed to work on healing, but remember my marriage too. I am completely distraught by this. I don't really understand why I am expected to be fine about intercourse again. I mean, I certainly try, but it's hard, especially at night. I wake up with nightmares still. I have anxiety 24/7 when I never have before, and am supposed to still be doing my wifely duties. I just don't get it. Stories number 39. How do I 35 politely tell my friend 35 I'm concerned about her health? Wait. Okay, this sucks. One of my very close friends of almost 15 years came and stayed with my partner and I for a little over a week at our apartment. One issue came up a couple times and both me and my partner are a little concerned. I do not want to hurt her feelings and I know this likely will either way, but she's always been a bit bigger. I do not care. My weight has fluctuated a lot in the time I've known her too, and I totally get it's normal to gain some weight as you get older. My partner and I were both kind of surprised when we saw her, and so were some friends and family. She has gained weight to the point where she does not want to walk to blocks we had planned to take the bus to an event. The bus is around the corner, so a block and a half, and the metro is 2 blocks away. She was not happy about it and wanted to take an Uber. We said no because I'm currently interviewing for jobs, and we didn't want to spend the extra cash as there were 5 of us. She and I went to lunch 3 blocks from our apartment, and she struggled with that same. With going to the grocery store, we visited a friend who lives in a walk-up, and she was frustrated with the stairs. She went to meet up with one friend at the end of the time she was here, and instead of walking to meet her at a nearby park 10-minute walk it's for to 5 blocks, she had her friend come pick her up. We are very open with each other. She recently helped me with 2 different medical issues had that were visible and embarrass me. If it were me, I would not be happy being talked to about it the same way I was with the 2 things she addressed that in dealing with recently, but I knew it was coming from a place of her wanting to help and me needing the support. Is there any way I can say anything or approach this? If I have to keep my mouth shut, I will, but it was pretty jarring, and she has brought up other health issues more recently. Can I say anything? What do I say? Stories number 40. I'm taking advantage of my best friend. For the sake of this post, I will be calling my best friend Kyle. Kyle has borderline personality disorder, and one of the ways that affects him is that he forms really fast and intense bonds with people. We met in 2021 online and instantly hit it off. We were in the eyes at least very close very quickly. We went through a lot together, through helping each other out through bad family situations to Kyle breaking up with an abusive ex-hooray, and us both becoming better people through knowing each other. He means the world to me. Kyle did in fact make a new friend last year. I will be calling this friend Stan. I don't like Stan. He and Kyle were immediately close, and now he is Kyle's best friend. It makes me extremely upset, and I can't even complain about Stan in any fair way because he is a lovely person. He apparently wanted to meet me because of how Kyle spoke about me, and we met online, and he was great. Then we met in real life. Neither of us had ever met Kyle in real life, and he was one of the most pleasant people I've ever met. It feels insanity inducing. I always want to spend time with Kyle, but it feels like it's always Stan and Kyle time with no room for anyone else ever. I really badly miss when Kyle used to lean on me and depend on me for support. It's selfish to say, but it felt good when he would go directly to me when he had a problem, and even when I checked my phone to see missed messages from him, and how happy he'd be when I answered them. This all makes me sound like I see him like a dog or something, but I don't. I love him, and he's a role model for me. It just feels really good to have someone who cares about you and what you have to say like that. I realized recently that whenever I'm upset, I immediately look for a reaction from him, and if he doesn't give me one quick enough, I do things like blocking him until he tries to reach out to me. I tend to be aggressive toward anyone who interacts with him just out of instinct. I don't really like him talking to other people. When he's upset, I listen the best I can to help him out, but I also occasionally try to convince him to stop talking to Stan during those times, since it's often his relationship with Stan that ends up making him upset. He's very rejection sensitive, and I can't stand to see him sad because of Stan just not noticing, which I guess is kind of sabotaging their friendship, which is bad. Stories number 41. Dealing with rude people. At my workplace, there's a person who comes across completely rude and entitled, be harmfully sarcastic. Last time I spoke to him, I asked if he read my message, and he responded, "No, I didn't read your blah blah." He's a senior guy, but I am not in his team, but need to connect for a few things. Last time I burst out and raised my voice in the call. I even kind of questioned him, something he won't be able to answer. It felt really good, as he thinks he's smarter than every other person. What would be the Buddhist way to handle this? Stories number 42. IF30 had to protect his niece from a pit bull, and my husband M31 ran off. I have been ignoring him. Is this something that I should be forgiving him for? I'm going to start with this. I'm still a bit traumatized, and I will be finding someone to talk to, and a friend's made this account for me because I am not a frequenter. Don't know if the pit bull made it. I haven't asked. My husband and his niece and nephew and I were in our backyard. I am going to assume our gate was open. I can't remember at the pit bull Came out of nowhere and latched onto his niece's 5F niece screen. By turn kicked it with all the force I could manage. I was lucky enough to hit it in the jaw somewhere that made its jaw dislodge. My husband, who had been a few feet away, shouted something along the lines of "Whose dog this?" I told him to get our bear spray from the house. I was in a panic. I am a animal love. But it was so insane. The pit bull seemed almost rabid. I don't think it was. In hindsight, it wasn't foaming at the mouth, it was just crazed. My husband ran, but not towards the house. He literally ran out the fence gate and shut it behind him, not towards his niece or nephew, who was also present, in the outdoor bassinet that I managed to all but toss onto the picnic table to make sure it was out of the dog's reach. While holding his niece off my shoulder, I put her on the BBQ to keep her out of reach, but the dog was literally jumping and snapping. And I was worried that if I tried to carry her in short, it would manage to grab her out of my hands. It chased me when I ran for the shove. But then I swung at it, and I swung until it stopped. I don't think I will ever forget the sound or feeling. It was so high stress, I didn't even realize that it had bit me twice. I haven't spoken to him for a full week. Even though we live in the same house, I didn't ask where he went. He only came back a few minutes later to pack us into the car and drive us to the hospital. He's getting angry that I'm giving him the silent treatment, but I feel like it's his fault that I had to possibly end that animal. If he had gotten the bear spray, I literally keep it in my purse for if I'm ever attacked by an animal or otherwise. Then I don't think I would have needed to do what I did. It was literally just inside the door. He knows where I keep it. Instead, he literally took off to God knows where. Me and to children that are not even related to could have died. It might not even be relevant. But I don't even like kids. I am staunchly child-free, and he is the one that offered us up to babysit for the weekend. I don't know, is this grounds for divorce? I'm not sure I can even look at him. Any attraction I had to him is pretty much gone. He tried to touch me yesterday just to move me so he could pass, and I smacked his hand away without even thinking about it, like he was some stranger at a bar, because it was literally jarring. He's just been skulking around trying to talk to me, then getting frustrated, then skulking more. I wasn't expecting him to be macho and fist fight the freaking dog, but at least follow instruction. At least not leave me a life and death situation with a toddler and an infant. Should I be able to chalk this up to in the moment panic? I don't even know if I want to hear him out. Second post, update. My friend said that people update often, but I don't know how to attach it to the other post. I thought I'd update since there had been a few things that happened. Kinda sorry if this is needlessly long, and I didn't expect this to get this many comments and kindnesses. And I want to say I'm so sorry to everyone that has experienced anything similar, because my God, it has not been easy. For everyone worried about my mental health, I did get in through an app with my work yesterday because I decided I really needed it and labeled it high priority. However, it felt like it was just a parliamentary meeting, and she said she wanted to get me to feeling a bit more comfortable because I was visibly tensing up whenever I started talking about it, and she even noticed it through the video chat. Last night also I told me husband I needed space. I apologize that I don't have more of an update on our relationship, then that I wasn't as nice as I wanted to be. He argued and didn't want to leave. It's my house, but I told him I just didn't want to look at him, that I couldn't look at him. He cried, and I hate that I felt apathetic towards it. I haven't slept well, so I'm not sure. I am also just overtired and still so shaken, though I was also emotionally exhausted after the appointments, so that might have added to it. I got a few questions about his sister and her husband, so I thought I'd answer. They aren't speaking within. I don't know when it happened. I was definitely out of it at the hospital while I was getting the stitches and everything, but I do think after I was done blubbering and trying to explain how something so terrible happened to their little girl under our watch, they apparently asked him where he was. I still haven't talked to him about where he went, so I don't know. However, it clearly didn't satisfy them. His niece just got out of the hospital yesterday, so that really triggered everything, and a lot happened. I had sent flowers and a bear, and this one toy thing she'd been asking about. I didn't go to the hospital, though I was scared seeing me would make her nervous. But his sister and her husband sent me flowers too, and it made me bawl again, in just a freaking mess. Honestly, the father sent me a long message that I haven't been able to get through, but it's the sweetest things anyone's ever sent to me. He also sent me a 1K Visa card. I literally thought I was reading the amount wrong. They are good people, and I still feel terrible. I couldn't have done more for her. Everything's just replaying in my head. Anyway, I obviously haven't looked into filing yet, but I am not against the idea of it. And it really did help me feel better about wanting a divorce over this. I know fight or flight can't be helped, but now I think I realize that it's okay not to want to be with someone who would leave you behind. I think I can say I'm a fighter and I want a fighter with me. Maybe he'd be better off with a runner instead, to then he at least wouldn't be leaving someone behind. I don't know, it feels like I'm done, but I'm also just a mess, so right now I'm just glad I have space. Thank you for everyone making me feel like I wasn't being ridiculous, though I think it always feels like it should be multiple issues that tear a marriage apart, unless it's infidelity or something, and it's like I know he may not have meant to betray me, but he still did. Whatever his reasoning, not sure when I'll be speaking to him, but I will try to update then. Stories number 43. I ripped out a girl's hair because I couldn't roast her. When I was 11 or 12, I don't remember, I ended up in a roast battle with a 13-year-old girl from my neighborhood. I was losing badly in front of about 5 of my close friends and extremely embarrassed. Things slowly got more aggressive, and it was at the point where everyone around me was making fun of me. I, at the time, was not taking any medicine for my anger issues, which are now treated much better. I took aggression and went to tackle her. Everyone was yelling at me, telling me to stop, but at that point, I didn't care. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I know that this incident caused that girl to move out with a bunch of bruises, cuts, and about half of the hair, which I was told she spent almost her whole life growing, pulled out by me. That day I lost 6 friends. Stories number 44. I fumbled. I recently moved into a new apartment on my own and started really focusing on myself mentally and physically. I got really caught up in buying new things for my place, getting to the gym, and continuing work. Well, one day, as I was heading out the elevator, I turned the corner to the entrance and almost bumped into a beautiful lady. Me being me, said, "Whoops, sorry miss," and carried on. She stopped, said, "Hey, I like your hair." I turned back and said, "Wow, thank you so much, that's so nice of you," and continued on my day. I got into my vehicle feeling over the moon about receiving a compliment from someone whom I would deem out of my league, and then shortly after felt like an idiot for not asking her name or number. Oh well, maybe one day we will bump into each other again, and then I will be able to tell her about the time where she made my whole year with a simple compliment. I had been in a rough patch the last 6 months, so it felt amazing. Stories number 45. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Marcus Aurelius. Other MA quotes along these lines. Or is it your reputation that's bothering you? But look at how soon we're all forgotten. The abyss of endless time that swallows it all, the emptiness of those applauding hands, the people who praise us. I know fight or flight can't be helped, but now I think I realize that it's okay not to want to be with someone who would leave you behind. I think I can say I'm a fighter and I want a fighter with me. Maybe he'd be better off with a runner instead, to then he at least wouldn't be leaving someone behind. I don't know, it feels like I'm done, but I'm also just a mess, so right now I'm just glad I have space. Thank you for everyone making me feel like I wasn't being ridiculous, though I think it always feels like it should be multiple issues that tear a marriage apart, unless it's infidelity or something, and it's like I know he may not have meant to betray me, but he still did. Whatever his reasoning, not sure when I'll be speaking to him, but I will try to update then. Stories number 43. I ripped out a girl's hair because I couldn't roast her. When I was 11 or 12, I don't remember, I ended up in a roast battle with a 13-year-old girl from my neighborhood. I was losing badly in front of about 5 of my close friends and extremely embarrassed. Things slowly got more aggressive, and it was at the point where everyone around me was making fun of me. I, at the time, was not taking any medicine for my anger issues, which are now treated much better. I took aggression and went to tackle her. Everyone was yelling at me, telling me to stop, but at that point, I didn't care. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I know that this incident caused that girl to move out with a bunch of bruises, cuts, and about half of the hair, which I was told she spent almost her whole life growing, pulled out by me. That day I lost 6 friends. Stories number 44. I fumbled. I recently moved into a new apartment on my own and started really focusing on myself mentally and physically. I got really caught up in buying new things for my place, getting to the gym, and continuing work. Well, one day, as I was heading out the elevator, I turned the corner to the entrance and almost bumped into a beautiful lady. Me being me, said, "Whoops, sorry miss," and carried on. She stopped, said, "Hey, I like your hair." I turned back and said, "Wow, thank you so much, that's so nice of you," and continued on my day. I got into my vehicle feeling over the moon about receiving a compliment from someone whom I would deem out of my league, And then shortly after felt like an idiot for not asking her name or number. Oh well, maybe one day, we will bump into each other again and then I will be able to tell her about the time where she made my whole year with a simple compliment. I had been in a rough patch the last 6 months, so it felt amazing. Stories number 45. It never ceases to amaze me we all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Marcus Aurelius. Other MA quotes along these lines. Or is it your reputation that's bothering you? But look at how soon we're all forgotten. The abyss of endless time that swallows it all, the emptiness of those applauding hands, the people who praise us. How capricious they are, how arbitrary, and the tiny region it takes place, the whole earth but a point in space and most of it uninhabited. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, he was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone. Nothing happens to any man that he is not formed by nature to bear. If any man despises me, that is his problem. My only concern is not doing or saying anything deserving of contempt. Stories number 46. My father had started acting strange. Hello, my name is Silas Williams. I'm 19 years old, but at the time of the event I wish to tell you that I was 17. I live on my own and have a tight-knit group of friends to have helped me gain enough courage to share this story with you, maybe in a futile attempt to find others like me, or let others know that no matter how bad it gets, things get better. This may seem all over the place, so I'll cut to the chase. I'm one of 7 sons. My brothers from oldest to youngest are Brick 23 years, Thomas 18 years, me 17 years, Archer 12 years, Het and Cud both 5 and identical twins. And Milo for years. Our family has a unique dynamic because of this. My mom worked very strange jobs. I can't quite remember what my mom did, but she traveled quite a lot and would often introduce us to business partners at the dinner table some nights. My dad, on the other hand, worked as a U.S. Postal Service worker for a long time. He retired a year before our mother died, so for a while she was the breadwinner. This was the inception for the events to occur. Our mother died. Aside from introducing us to people we never knew or seen before, she was very strict and no elbows on the table, back straight. Everyone must have a routine kind of mom. Our dad, however, was not the same way. You can say he was more or less complicit in her behavior and never really stood up to her. He would always mockingly tell us how doing this has led him to a happy life with 7 sons. Even now I think I'd rather eat nails and live subjugated to a crazy woman. Then she died. It came as a surprise to everyone, a complete and total shutdown of the body. She was healthy at 45. Worked out consistently and ate healthy foods. The doctor hardly gave us any worthwhile information other than that very rarely this could happen to anyone, even a little kid like my brother Milo. My dad was devastated, Brick was devastated, and that was about it. I can hardly say I like her, but Thomas hated her dad, Asthouse, who wanted to come to the funeral, which would be about an 8-hour drive from our house to a secluded funeral home owned by a subsidiary of the company she worked for. Brick had to work. Thomas was a crash-out. Archer had severe motion sickness, and the younger boys were out of the question, so I went hoping for a fast service and an even faster ride home. The service was a blur to me, as I mostly occupy myself with my phone and steered clear of older people to avoid hearing I knew you since you were a baby, or your mother was a great woman. My dad, oddly enough, didn't shed a tear. He wasn't a waterhead by any means, but if seen him cry watching The Blind Side and Finding Nemo, would mention the trip back home and what that was like, but he hardly said anything to me. Getting home, we received a warm welcome with Ted, Cut, and Milo rushing out to see us. They were jumping up and down, happy to see Dad, but their little minds just couldn't comprehend what was happening. Our dad had gotten out of the car and trudged through the kids to go inside. The kids were heartbroken, but as soon as they saw me, they had pounced on me instead. Hey guys, just a heads up, Dad isn't feeling too well. Can you leave him alone for a while? I said calmly. They nodded their heads and began screaming to me about this new game Archer had brought home, and all the unique character names and superpowers I didn't care to study at the time. Walking into our home, it is a 3-bedroom to 2-bathroom house where all the rooms except our parents were made into mini dormitories. I remember Brick being in the kitchen, Archer on the couch playing games, and the woes had just come in. My dad immediately locked himself away in his bedroom. Brick shot me a quizzical look and asked what the heck happened. I sidled up beside him, resting my weight on the freshly dirtied counter. The funeral happened. Hey guys, can you play with Archer for a bit? And kinda tired the mewling bows Sighed a collective then Archer belted from the couch. Dude, come on, I'm tired of kicking their asses. All Brick did was look at Archer and he sigh and let the kids have their chance. As I watched Brick sear more slabs of battered chicken onto the frying pan, I spoke plainly. The funeral was just as quiet as the car ride. Saw a bunch of people I didn't know and Dad didn't cry at all. The food wasn't bad though. Brick gave me a surprised look and before he could speak I interjected, I know dude. He just shook his head. When we all sat down to eat that night, Dad didn't come to the table. We began to eat together and then Thomas came home in all of his drunken stupor, cigarette hanging loosely from his mouth and a thick sweat forming across his forehead. With a bottle of whiskey in his hand he came screaming in through the back screen door, voice already hoarse from doing God knows what at the time. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. No more of the horrible banging woman. He flopped down at the now silent table and Brick slid the food away from him and calmly pushed a water bottle towards him. Wait, what the hell? Why are you drinking water? Shouldn't you be celebrating? Thomas spoke. Celebrating what? The death of the only other person making money in the house. Yeah, yippee, now I get to take care of the house as well as 3 children who get to grow up without a mother, Brick said. Shit, if you ask me, it sounds like you got exactly what you wanted. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Where were you, Thomas? I redirected. Tsh, getting party favors banned, does it look like? He slid his half-drunk whiskey bottle across the table to us. Archer outstretched a hand towards it, and Brick slapped it away with a spatula. Ow, Brick, you're not Mom, so stop trying to be her, Archer said. Fine, you know what, go ahead, drink to your heart's content. See if I care. In meeting in the room, Brick stormed off with his plate to what was mine, Thomas, and his bedroom before slamming it closed with the tyrant gone. Archer sipped a spoonful's worth of whiskey before coughing and gagging. So how was it, man? Were other people celebrating? To Thomas said to me. No one was celebrating, and on top of that Dad didn't cry. Well, what? Yeah, he was quiet the whole time. And on the ride home, damn, what's got him so upset? Thomas asked sarcastically, looking to see if anyone would bite, but 3/5 of the table didn't understand the joke and the rest of us didn't find it funny. Tough crowd. Thomas finished the night we finished our food. Brick made Thomas wash the dishes, who then paid Archer to do it for him. We had settled into our beds doing our nightly routines before we all stirred to the sound of groaning, a barely audible rattle that turned into a muffled groan. The 3 of us in the room looked at each other. Thomas was too faded to understand what was going on, but he was present at the very least. Once we opened our door, it turned from muffled to a full-on sobbing roar. The boys opened their doors soon after, and Brick motioned for them to stay put. Looking back, this was the first sign. Our dad was groaning, yelling, and possibly crying. It was hard to tell if his sobs were laughter or uncontrollable crying. With slurred words we could hear him bellowing with his broken voice, No, I can't do it, I can't. Brick and Thomas stood beside my father's bedroom door. Looking at each other, we were trying to make sense of it, and our lips trembled and stammered to think of something to say. No, I can't, don't I love them that I can't. At this point we were more interested in hearing what he was saying. As the concern turned into curiosity, should we say something? Brick whispered, no way, let the man get it out. Thomas replied. We stood there longer. And the longer we stood there, our father's grief became our own. I could see the tears welling in Brick's eyes, how they transferred to Thomas and then to my own. I loved Dad, and even now I still do. After a point before we decided to lay down, his sounds grew one note. It was no longer sobs, but a guttural groan, almost like a rattle. It lasted for a long time and kept going. It only stopped when he hitched for breaths, then continued. Now was the time to intervene. My brothers usually sent me in as the peacekeeper because I could talk good. But outside my sobbing dad's door I couldn't think of what to say, and before I could, my youngest brother Milo had his head pressed against the door, and with the most sincere voice he could muster he said, Daddy, what's wrong? Brick tried to pull him away, and as his hand tugged on him, our dad spoke through the door. Milo, hey buddy. Daddy, why are you crying? Your dad is in pain. Milo, are you hurted? Yes, Milo, inside it hurts all over. Do you want chocolate milk? When him sat, I get chocolate milk. No buddy, it'll be okay, I love you so much, I'm so sorry. Please, you've got school tomorrow. Milo whispered a soft I love you, and just like that the nose was over. Sadly enough, after our morning routine the next day, that was the last time I'd see Milo alive again. Stories number 47. I'm stuck with a damaged wheelchair van I don't need and owe $25,000 on it still. My ex was in a wheelchair and we broke up. The van was in my name and he doesn't care to help in the situation. I still owe $25,000 and the van has probably $5,000, $7,000 worth of repairs needed to be sold to a mobility van dealership. And I would probably only get $2,000, $10,000 from them. After the repairs, I could try to repair one door with the van so that I could sell it to an individual. That would be at least $2,000 and I still would only get like $10,000, $15,000 if I'm lucky. The van was purchased in Colorado and is still registered there. I'm living in Kansas and about to move to Missouri. I say this because I don't know how my location might affect the rules around a repossession if I decide to go that way. My dad just paid off my credit card debt of $5,000. I still owe him but no interest, so I have a credit score of 760 for right now. So I'm thinking of getting a loan to buy a $5,000 car before I repossess so I hopefully can get a decent interest rate. I also have other debts and was considered bankruptcy, but I don't know if it's worth it or getting one big loan to pay everything off and consolidate. I owe $9,435 to my dad, no time limit on paying back, no interest. And it will come out of my inheritance if he dies before I pay it back. $1,931 to my old landlord in Colorado, which I'm considering just not paying. $2,341 for federal tax on a payment plan. $1,140 ethical department. Paying collections $25,000 on the van, so I don't know how much bankruptcy would help since a lot of what I owe is just to my dad unless I took a loan out to pay him then filed bankruptcy. Obviously I would like not to ruin my credit for 7 years, but I'm not sure what the best option is. I'm about to get into a position where I'll have maybe $500 left after bills and living expenses each month so I can start paying things down. I also wasn't sure about the rules with the repossession, if I would still be responsible for the remaining amount due. I did see one thing that said I wouldn't if the vehicle sold for less than $1,000 at auction at it. If I'm going to still owe the deficiency on the repo, is bankruptcy a better option, or am I just going to be stuck paying off a car I will no longer have? I can't really afford the $426 monthly payments for the van plus whatever I will pay for a new used vehicle. Second edit, if I could sell the van to an individual for $15,000, let's say, what would I do about the remaining $10,000 on the loan? Get a personal loan to cover that. Stories number 48. Anyone else's boomer parents complain about how hard parenting is, then are shocked when you don't want kids. My whole childhood was my parents complaining about having me and my siblings. They talked about how hard it was, how expensive it was, and would guilt trip me about how great their life would have been if they didn't have kids. Fast forward, my wife and I don't want kids. My parents are shocked and trying to gas like me that being a parent is great. They are even denying complaining about being parents. Stories number 49. Any flossing facts? I don't think my approach is innovative enough to be considered a life hack, but along with asking the question, I figured I'd share my approach. I just get the 20 for pack of Oral-B off Amazon. It's less than $50. I put one in my backpack for work, one in my bathroom, one in my bedroom, and leave the rest in my car, replacing them as I need. $50 on floss seems like such a boring use of your money, so for a while I was just buying floss as I went, like most people probably, so I had it sitting on my Amazon wish list for a long time because it's also a boring gift to buy for someone. Finally someone asked me flatly what I wanted as a gift, and I told them I don't use most frivolous gifts, but I definitely use that. Anyway, it certainly improved my oral hygiene. My dad was so cheap he would use rubber bands sometimes when he lived on his own. I can't say with 100% certainty that he ever bought floss for himself, so he'll definitely take my approach over that, but I am always open to suggestions. Stories number 50. My 27 meters GF 26N and I haven't had intercourse in 3 years. How can I approach this? Throw away my girlfriend and I have been together for 3 years. Our anniversary just happened and it made me reflect on how intercourse frustrated I am becoming. Overall relationship is great and I see myself having a future with her. For some context, my girlfriend is a virgin and I am not. I knew that from day one and I had no problem waiting for her. I'll admit that I expected this to be a couple of months of waiting, not years. At first, she said she wanted to make sure we had a strong foundation in our relationship, and given that she's a virgin it made her nervous and it was a big deal for her. I respected that. Told her I wouldn't bring it up and we could talk about it some more when she's ready. Months went by and I heard nothing, so I brought it up. I asked how she was feeling about having intercourse. And she mentioned she was still nervous. Almost a year into our relationship, she told me she was ready, though was afraid of getting pregnant, as having an abortion is something we both wouldn't want. She's in graduate school, so accidentally getting pregnant while trying to finish school to begin her career is not ideal. I completely understand. Because of this, she's not comfortable with just using condoms, as she fears the possibility of getting pregnant. At that point we talked about the possibility of birth control. She was open to it, though was a bit hesitant, as she didn't want her hormones to be affected. We spent months doing research, and at the last minute before her appointment, she mentioned she wasn't comfortable getting an IUD and was against taking hormonal birth control. I respect that, and at the end of the day, it's her body, so I didn't press her on moving forward with it. Finally, we talked about possibly tracking her menstrual cycle and using condoms. I purchased a device to help her track her body temperatures, and it seemed like we were finally getting to the point of having intercourse. About 3 months after tracking her monthlies and understanding her cycle, she said by the next month she would feel comfortable and be ready to have intercourse. At this time, her close friend got pregnant and had an abortion, which spooked her. I asked how she was feeling, and she mentioned it made her nervous, as she was still good to move forward. The next month, she got her monthlies. I thought we were finally getting there. I asked her how she was feeling, and she said she was nervous, which I understood. That conversation eventually led to the same result of her being scared of getting pregnant in the middle of her program. Especially with the recent event of her friend getting pregnant, she asked if I was willing to wait another year until the end of her program. I expressed my frustrations and didn't really know what to say. I was very annoyed with the whole situation, because as I felt like things were getting close, the goalpost just continues to move. Honestly, not okay with waiting a whole year after believing multiple times that we had found common ground to have intercourse, only for it not to happen. But I also don't feel comfortable giving her an ultimatum of breaking up for not having intercourse. I feel like I'm in a tough position. I expressed my frustrations with waiting for a year. She understood but didn't change her mind. Months later, we celebrated our 3-year anniversary, and I feel dumb for not having intercourse. After 3 whole years, it's hard not to build resentment when I feel like I do my best for her in this relationship, or feel like I am not desired from the start. I expressed how important I think intercourse is and how it's important to communicate our intercourse needs during these 3 years. We do get intimate. We pretty much do everything possible without penetration. Our chemistry together is great and just makes me want to move forward with her even more. I think it's unreasonable to not be okay with intercourse with just condoms. I've expressed this, and she just isn't comfortable with intercourse with only condoms, doesn't want to get an IUD, and doesn't want to be on hormonal birth control. I am ready to have a talk with her again about this whole situation. I don't know exactly what to say and how to say it without coming off as insensitive, and basically saying, if we don't have intercourse, I don't see how this relationship would work out. I would greatly appreciate any thoughts or advice on how to handle this situation. Thanks. Stories number 51. Aita for not letting my wife fat check me. So today my wife 50F and I 50 meters are out having ice cream with some old friends visiting from out of town. My wife's gained quite a bit. If weight a separate issue and feels uncomfortable about, nevertheless she suggested ice cream. As we were ordering, my wife tells the server that my wife and I will each be having the 1 scoop kitty size. She turns to our friends and says we could stand to lose a few pounds. Then she tries to pinch my side where a spare tire would be, but I don't have one. She pinched a few times up and down my side with no luck. She then rubbed my stomach, seemingly trying to jiggle a belly, but I don't have one. I got petty when I saw it coming and tightened my core. No jiggle. I've lost 40 pounds in the past year. Maybe she hasn't noticed. Another issue. Her expression went from uncomfortable forced joviality to embarrassment to pissed off. Aita for not going along with my wife's attempt to denigrate me to make herself feel better in a situation that was uncomfortable for her. Stories number 52. Aita for asking my roommate's boyfriend to pay rent when he doesn't live with us. My 18F roommate has been dating her boyfriend for a couple of months. He sleeps over at our flat at least 3 times a week, uses our shower for about 45 minutes every time, as well, and eats our food, and turns up our central heating and just acts as if he lives here. Our water and electricity has gone up since she started dating him. We pay our household bills 50/50. as we use about the same amount of everything, but I don't want to pay for what he is using because I need to save as much money as possible. At the end of my second year of college and I'm basically living off pot noodles. I asked my roommate to pay for the added cost and she said no because it's not her who is making it higher and it's better if we just each pay half of the added cost. So I asked her to get her boyfriend to pay for it and she said no because he doesn't even live here. I said I didn't care because he's still causing our bills to go up, so either she pays for it or he does. She said it wasn't that big of a deal and she doesn't understand why I care so much when more extra costs and I might have to start skipping meals. She doesn't really understand why I have such a strict budget. Her parents support her financially, but mine said you can starve to death after I moved out at 16 because they were completely hateful. Stories number 53. Hi. I don't know what to do and I need help. I just genuinely want to take this off of my chest. I'm not going to use my real name, but I'll just use my first initial. Hi, I'm AF13. Yes, I'm young and I shouldn't be here, but hearing all the stories and how the people got help, I had to try it myself. Sorry if my grammar isn't the best. English is not my first language. I grew up mainly with my mom since she and my dad were divorced. My mom had primary custody. My dad came to see me on the weekends and take me to places. Everything was nice and there were no issues in my eyes until I got to about 7 years old when my mom decided we were going to move in with my stepfather. See, I wasn't too happy about leaving my friends behind, but it ultimately was fine in the end since they had a lot of dogs and I loved dogs. We quickly settled in and I got a nice room for myself, yet that's where all the problems started. Every time I did something wrong, my stepfather would yell at me and then ground me. I felt scared because my mom never did this. She did punish me when needed, but she didn't scream to do it, so this was new and scary to me. Once he got so mad he chased me around the house and I once even tried to run away from my mom, but especially from my stepfather. He's a good guy, but definitely scary. Over time it got less and less because I grew up and I matured more way too fast in my opinion, but that's something that doesn't matter right now. Then my birth dad, we were still on good terms when I moved, but things really started to get tense the more I hit puberty. For some reason it all started this one summer vacation in 2022. When I was 11, I believe I was with him in Romania to visit family and just have fun, but when we were at my grandparents' he one morning snatched my phone while I was looking on it and went through everything. I got scared and I started crying. I used to do a thing called gacha at the time a lot, making content and following trends that weren't very holy in his eyes. He's a super Christian, and so is the rest of his part of the family. While I am secretly an atheist, he started screaming at me and demanded me to delete my account with my online friends that I really liked to talk to, so I did. But for some reason it always stuck in my head since that day on. I started to ignore his calls and texts. I just didn't feel comfy with him anymore. Sure, we still went out on the weekends, and he'd question me. I didn't respond and I always just shrugged, not wanting to tell the truth, because I know he scream at me for being selfish. Then 2023, another vacation gone wrong. I developed more opinions and found my voice. And I think my dad didn't like that. He didn't want for me to have a voice to become older and see how bad he actually was. I even know why my mom divorced him at that point, because he was just plainly toxic. He'd manipulate her and make her feel small. She got over it though and she's a strong woman now. I love you, Mom. So another summer vacation. Everything was fine the first few days until we got to a resort at the beach with his family. I was just acting like myself and talking to my cousins. But for some reason when we were alone he'd tell me not to act that way and that I'm embarrassing him. I never understood what I did to embarrass him. Each time I talked to the other adults I was just respectful, or when I thought I said something funny they'd laugh, including him. But one night I was just talking with someone until he suddenly pulled me outside and began to yell at me for talking to a stranger who was the same age as me and seemed to be drawing, and I just wanted to give a few art tips to seeing they shared my interest. But the thing is I had enough and I just began yelling back and crying, which he just began to yell harder at, and we just had a screaming match. I understood I shouldn't talk to strangers, but to someone who is the same age as me, and I'm just giving a few tips to not very harmful in my opinion. Everything else in the vacation went fine, but we still had huge fights even in the car. Then the New Year's of 2023. Oh boy. I decided to go with my dad for New Year's after having spent Christmas at my mom's. I wanted to give a bigger chance At trying to mend my and my father's strained relationship, everything genuinely went well. There weren't many fights. Here comes the but again. He got drunk while with his friends. And I was playing with one of the friends' kid, who was roughly a year younger than me. We shared a gaming interest, so I played Fortnite with him even though I barely even know how to shoot. Basically, my dad did call an Uber, but I felt uncomfortable because they started to ask weird questions to me. I just didn't respond and ignored him until we got to his friend's house where we were staying. I didn't say or do much but just went to bed. In the morning, me and my dad set out to visit some more friends of his, but these friends I knew long ago and felt comfortable with because the female friend of his is also a friend of my mom's and she used to babysit me. The husband is also a great guy and they have really nice kids while being way younger than me. Do include me by speaking a little more English with me since I had sort of forgotten my Romanian a little. Everything went well. We set off the fireworks with them and all, but yesterday was still heavy on my shoulders, and when my dad was gone for a bit, I broke down. I wish I didn't, but I was also slightly glad that Elle helped me when she saw me and brought me upstairs. Don't know, but I just kept sobbing. And I couldn't explain much, but all that I wanted was to call my mom, so we ringed her up and I talked to her and I told the both of them what happened yesterday and how we keep arguing and how I don't feel uncomfortable next to him anymore and how he's just scary and how I just want to go home. My mom took this very seriously. I didn't even want her to, but I didn't tell her. But she texted my dad about this. She went a little overboard though and probably misheard it a little, but late in the night my dad sat me down with Elle next to me, being there for me if needed. He started talking and he was visibly angry at me. I don't remember what he said, but it genuinely wasn't nice to hear because I could barely hold in my tears. He started yelling about what I said over yesterday and how my mom told him how bad it was that his friends touched me. And I was confused because they didn't, and I gently agreed that was overboard, but he just kept screaming at me for it. Elle jumped in quickly though and tried to de-escalate the situation and trying to get my dad calm, as he tends to get quite violent with his wordings of things. I decided to stay the night at L&S house while he stayed with his friends so we can both have some fresh air and talk in the morning. While everything went on, my mom had bought me plane tickets back home because we was so shaken by my sobbing and begging to go home. It was definitely expensive, but my mom said it was worth it. We talked a lot and I just kept venting to her about what my dad did and how much he yelled at me practically for the smallest things in the car and just a lot of things. Morning came around and so did my dad. He came to the house. We spoke. His voice was at least a little softer than yesterday, but I could tell he's still quite pissed about it. I told him how I felt that night and why I did it, and he just tossed it aside as ungrateful, that he's my dad and I'm just trying to paint him as the bad guy while he kinda is, but okay. We came to our conclusions and my dad promised he'd try to keeping his temper tantrums. He went to his friend's house again while me and his daughter went to watch the new Willy Wonka movie to get our mind off of the drama. The film wasn't really up to my taste, but I did like it. This was the only musical I could endorse. Everything went smoothly the next few days while my mom paid for my ticket and made the flight as quick as possible. About 2 days from the day I called at the airport, me and my dad were dry to each other, but I could still see he was angry at me. I got escorted to the plane by personnel to catch the flight back to the Netherlands. My dad would stay a little longer until he'd eventually drive back. I didn't speak to him much anymore and it was a while since then. I still get emotional thinking about it. I even tested up writing a bit, but moving on once more. Around like a month ago now, I got hit by a bus. I didn't get under it luckily and got rushed to the my mom was called, police was called, etc. But this also meant calling my dad. My mom got to the first and she was the first one to arrive. My dad came later and it was tense. When he entered the room, my mom was cold and casual to him, and so was he. They got a little agitated with each other at times, but I told them that now is not the time. While I laid there, my mom went to get me something to drink, often just so I could stay hydrated. But when she was gone, those few seconds, my dad would rudely question me why I didn't respond to his texts, and why I even got hit, and how stupid I was. It wasn't my fault, and he just kept doing that each time my mom was gone, being an angel in front of her, but then being rude to me while she was gone. After hours and hours of being tested, scans and whatever, I finally got released with a dose of pain medication to help me out. My mom had to go get the car, which meant me and my dad would have to walk to the exit alone, and then again he started to ramble to me and I just Felt so insanely tired, and I was in pain, and every part of my body was screaming at me, and I just kind of snapped. I yelled and screaming at him, and cried. I didn't care if public eyes saw me. I was done with everything. I was in pain and screaming at him, reprimanding him like he was some toddler. Of course, he didn't like it that I made him look like the bad guy. Well, he definitely was the bad guy, and so on and so on. I was just having a mental breakdown in front of him. My mom soon arrived with the car and we began walking out, still yelling at each other. I just felt so mad and defeated at the same time. I just wanted him to leave me alone for once. Once my mom saw this, she stuck up for me, as if it into the car, and I just didn't say anything. They yelled something Romanian to each other for a few minutes before she just drove away. And at that time, I just picked up my phone and blocked him on everything that I had. I did not want to have contact with him. If every time that he sees me he wants trouble, I don't endorse that behavior, and I find it ridiculous how a grown man like him still acts like this when he doesn't get his way. I need some opinions on what I should do. Did I do the right thing cutting contact with him? Should I get into therapy with him to try and mend everything? What should I do?